Greetings Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the Maverick News channel. I am Rick Walker, and for those of you in the Maverick family, you know that already, but I'd like to say hello to all the new viewers who are here tonight, wherever you may be watching from. It's a good thing I have some of this. Gonna need it tonight. The world continues to spiral out of control. Or so it seems. We'll be talking about these protests on campuses across the United States and Canada. We are going to talk about Pierre Poilievre, leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, being kicked out of Parliament today for calling the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, a wacko. I mean, oh. Oh. That's very unparliamentary of him. But I think it will score him some political points, and the Liberals are losing their minds over this one. We've got the highlights. We have a special guest who will join us a little later in the program. Carl Larson is with Ukraine Defense Support, a co-founder. And he spent some time fighting as a soldier with Ukrainian forces. He is going to bring us a different perspective on this conflict between Ukraine, Russia, which is really, it's really the United States, NATO against Russia. We'll also tell you there's a new development on that front too tonight. NATO, Ukraine, I'll tell you what it is. I'll tell you what that is too. Tragic story on, I believe, the 401. A chase, a high-speed chase down Highway 401 here in Canada, in Ontario, down the wrong way. Multiple police vehicles chasing a suspect vehicle resulted in a collision and tragedy, death. I'll tell you about that. We have video as well. Crazy stuff. What else do I have for you tonight? Those are the main things, I think. Oh, you remember I told you that these protests, these Axe the Tax protests that are still, I think they're still there on the sides of highways across Canada, all part of the freedom movement in this country. I told you they stole the slogan from Pierre Poilievre, conservative, and I told you there's more going on behind the scenes than anyone realizes politically. And I told you it could be a trap for Poilievre. Liberals posting stuff on Twitter or X that's going to reinforce what I told you about that. I'll give you some new insight into what it's all about. Politics. Strange game, man. A strange game indeed. Those are basically the headlines. These protests on campuses dominating the headlines really tonight. And stay with me, because when we come back, we'll dig into it. We'll get into the nitty-gritty, and we'll get to our special guest this evening as well. Be right back.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
All right, we're back. Let's get right into it, shall we? Where are we going to begin tonight? You know what? I don't normally do this. I usually just jump right in and start dealing with these stories. But what do you guys want to start with tonight? Do you want to start with the Poilievre story about him getting kicked out of Parliament? Or do you want to start with the coverage of what's been going on campuses? Kick out Pierre, trying to jail Trump. This is from Seize the Day. Nope, don't see a pattern. Yeah. What do you guys want to start with tonight? I'm going to leave it up to you to be the assignment editor. You tell me what the lineup is. I have to wait for a moment here for the chat to populate. Poilievre says Mary. Sandy says campuses. Well, Mary kind of beat you to the punch there. Polly, Noella. Seems, yeah, kick. Okay. Everybody wants Pierre. I thought so. Canadian story for our U.S. viewers. It's still fairly entertaining. And I think it'll give you a taste of where things are at politically, not just in Canada, but globally as well. Pierre Poilievre called Justin Trudeau a wacko in Parliament. Now, you see, in Canada, because we have a parliamentary system, when you speak, you have to speak to the Speaker of the House. You don't speak directly to you don't even pose questions directly to a member opposite when you're speaking to them. So today, Pierre Poilievre, leader of the official opposition during question period in the House, as he is asking Justin Trudeau questions about the government's drug policies nationally, but specifically as they relate to what's going on in British Columbia, where they have recriminalized hard drug use in public places because the drug policies have resulted in an abysmal failure with a huge spike in deaths, drug-related deaths, family problems, unemployment, people on the streets, safe injection centers, causing all kinds of societal problems in the neighborhoods where they're located, increases in crime, the whole ball of wax. It's just been an abysmal failure. So the provincial government changing its policies, now recriminalizing use in public spaces. But this is highlighting the national drug policies of the Trudeau government and its policies in the way that it funds these kinds of programs for provinces. Bottom line is, Poilievre says that the policies of Trudeau when it comes to drugs are wacko. So he's addressing the Speaker of the House, but in Parliament, you're supposed to be respectful, even though you can accuse someone opposite and the opposite side of the House of doing something criminal with immunity. You you could accuse them of murdering somebody, I think, and not be, you couldn't be sued for defamation or slander. Do it outside the House and you could be. But don't do what Poilievre did today, or you'll get yourself kicked out of the House. Okay, let's go to the video, shall we? I'll run this for you because I'll run the exchange so you get the full context, okay? And this is I don't know. It's a moment in history. I don't know how significant this is in terms of Canadian history, but it's certainly a milestone day. No doubt about it. This doesn't happen very often. And once Poilievre refused to bend the knee to the Speaker of the House and retract his question after he was kicked out, it escalated. It wasn't just Poilievre who got kicked out. The entire caucus stood up and left. Anyway, you'll get to see it all right here because we've got the whole exchange right now.
Oral questions.
Here we go.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. After 9 years, this Prime Minister is not worth the crime or the drugs. This government's radical, extreme drug policies, which are supported by the Bloc Québécois, have tripled overdose deaths. In the Journal de Montréal today, we can read there are used needles on the floor, there are terrible scenes to be witnessed, there are supervised consumption sites, some of which are a couple steps away from schools in Montreal. When will the Prime Minister reverse his radical policies which are causing deaths? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the opioid crisis is terrible. It's occurring across the country. But what we need to fix this is not more conservative ideology. We need solutions based on compassion, healthcare, and science. We need evidence-based solutions. Now we will continue to work together with provinces and with communities to address this public health crisis. We will do so in a thorough and compassionate manner. That is what Canadians expect.
Oh, but here come the fireworks. Fasten your
Minister
seatbelts.
is not worth the drugs and death. His extreme and radical drug policy has increased overdose deaths in British Columbia by 380%. In the year following his decriminalization of crack, heroin, and other hard drugs in hospitals, transit buses, coffee shops, and parks where children play, there has been a record-smashing 2,500 deaths. Will the Prime Minister accept the BC NDP's demand to recriminalize those drugs?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, I just answered that question. What hasn't been answered by the Leader of the Opposition is why he chooses to continue to court extreme right nationalist groups like Diagolon.
There it is, Diagolon again.
These extremists who don't believe Canadians should coexist with each other. Instead, they call for war and tell people to follow their instincts accordingly. The Leader of the Conservative Party is actively courting the support of groups with white nationalist views. It is disturbing, and he needs to stand up and apologize now.
Okay, so I'm going to stop it there because remember, I told everybody, long before anybody else even touched on this, the people who organized these protests, Axe the Tax, using the conservative slogan, Axe the Tax, did it in response to Poilievre saying, please go out and protest the carbon tax. They've been sitting on the sides of highways, right, across Canada. Small groups, not large, small, but still there. I told you, these people doing the protesting, they don't really like politics. Some of them do. But the people at the core of it don't. They're not pro-Poilievre. At least they haven't been. And what they're doing with these protests, I said, I don't really know what the ultimate goal is, but I told you there's something more going on, like there was some deal made or whatever. And then Poilievre took the bait. After 3 weeks of these protests persisting, he ends up stopping randomly, maybe out in eastern Canada, in the Maritimes, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, border. He stops there. And of course, several days ago, this happened over the weekend, and it's gone viral, right? But who does this really benefit? Now, Poilievre is being attacked. It's given ammunition to the people on the left because, as I said, when he came out of that trailer that he visited on the side of the highway, he went into a trailer that was parked there as one of these protest sites. As he's coming out, there's a Diagolon flag, which, for those of you who still don't know, Diagolon is a group that the government has focused on, calling them far-right, white supremacist, nationalists, whatever, as most of you understand. But if our American viewers are not aware, that's what it is. So that's a money shot, right? It's like Poilievre coming out of the trailer. There's a little Diagolon flag drawn with a magic marker on the inside of the door as it opens. So you've got the flag from this group, this political group, or whatever you want to call them, okay? We're all familiar with them here, especially if you're into the whole freedom movement thing in Canada. Money shot. Poilievre flag, side by side. At least one of the main people at that protest site, I think belonged to the Diagolon group. I'm not sure, but I think they're affiliated. Anyway, now Trudeau has been jacked up and talking about how Poilievre is associating and courting the votes of far-right extremist groups. I told you, man, it's like the whole thing. There's a lot of politics going on behind the scenes. And if at any time anything bad happens at any of those protests, this will give Trudeau the opportunity to point his finger as well at Poilievre and say, see what happened at that terrible protest where somebody got, I don't know, into a fight, or it could be anything. Right? And I'm not saying anything bad will happen. I'm just saying that it's a very dangerous thing. I'm not sure why Poilievre even stopped, because he's so far out in front in the polls that he would easily win a majority today if an election were called. But I don't even know if it's going to hurt him. Anyway, let's continue this, because the real story today, and I'm going to come back to this whole thing about Diagolon, but the real story today is this exchange. And it's gonna ramp up here. The Wacko stuff is coming. Don't worry. Are you not entertained?
It's important that we try to control ourselves. I'll ask the honourable member from St. Albert, Edmonton, please, to allow members to ask the questions and members to respond. The honourable leader of the opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I always condemn extremism and racism, including from the guy who spent the first half of his adult life as a practicing racist, dressing up in hideous racist costumes so many times you
The honourable member, leader of the opposition, knows that to make an accusation directly at the character of a single person is not appropriate. And I'm going to ask all members to control themselves.
They're so well behaved, aren't they? All of these guys.
I'll ask the honourable leader of the opposition to rephrase this question and to start for the top.
Mr. Speaker, I will also condemn the extremism of a prime minister who gives hundreds of thousands of dollars of anti-racism money to a Jew hater who has proposed shooting Jews in the head. I condemn a prime minister who allows the IRGC, which murdered 55 Canadians, to remain legal. And I condemn a Prime Minister who allows open use of crack, heroin, meth, and weapons in hospital rooms that threaten nurses and on school buses next to children. Will the Prime Minister reverse his extremist policies and
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the leader opposite is showing us exactly what shameful, spineless leadership looks like. He shakes hands with white nationalists and then goes to actively court the support of those members and has the nerve. Get it together,
Any idea what you're doing? Order. I'm going to ask the honourable member from Lethbridge if she has problems with the chair, that she should challenge the chair in a way. But as she knows, as the honourable member from Lethbridge knows, that by challenging the chair is against the rules of this House. I'll ask the honourable member to please to ask her to withdraw her remarks.
The chair is acting in a disgraceful manner.
I'm going to ask you, will you...
Okay, time to mute the audio. Though that means the speaker's not happy at all.
Ms. Harder, I have to name you for disregarding the authority of the chair. Pursuant to authority granted to me by Standing Order 11, I order you to withdraw from the House and from any participation by video conference for the remainder of this day's sitting. Now back to the issue at hand. Mrs. Thomas, my apologies. Now back to the original point. I'm going to ask the Prime Minister to please, as I'd ask the Leader of the Opposition, you can start from again and to make sure that he does, to start his question, and to reframe it in a way that does not call into the character of an individual member of Parliament. The Honourable Prime Minister, Right Honourable Prime Minister.
These kids,
Mr. Speaker,
they just can't get
the
along.
leader opposite is showing us once again what he will do to try and earn votes through personal attacks. He shakes the hands of a leader of a white nationalist group, then goes to actively court the support of the group's members and thinks he can get away with it. This is a group that advocates for violence against Jewish LGBTQI plus Canadians, against Hindus and Sikhs, against Muslims and Jews. Diagolon stands against everything we stand for as Canadians, and yet he will not denounce them or what they stand for. That is shameful, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, that, like everything else he says, is false. He uses fear and falsehood and this latest distraction because he doesn't want to face the fact that he has become so extreme and radical that even the BC NDP is distancing themselves from his decriminalization of crack, heroin, meth, and other hard drugs in hospital rooms, causing nurses to have to stop breastfeeding their babies for fear that their contaminated air might end up in the breast milk of the baby. Why won't he ban these drugs?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Still won't condemn these groups. Any leader that needs the support of a far far-right white nationalist group to fundraise and get closer to power does not deserve elected office. This is a...
What does that have to do with the issue of the drug? Nothing. We're talking about the drug policies, people dying from overdoses, addiction, shattered families, and he's on about Diagolon, the and far right extremism. Like it's these are two totally different subjects, and I told you.
19-year career politician who knows exactly what he's doing and thinks he can get away with it. It was a choice to pander to white nationalists, not an accident. And it is a choice to continue to not condemn them and condemn everything they stand for in this quest for votes.
You didn't answer the question.
I'm going to ask the honourable member for the second time from St. Albert, Edmonton, to please withhold his comments until he has the floor.
In other words, shut up.
Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, it is a choice for him to implement extremist policies that have taken the lives of 2,500 British Columbians every single year. Since the NDP has asked him to reverse course on his and formerly their radical policy, 22 British Columbians have died of drug overdoses. But he continues to allow those drugs to kill the people in our hospitals and on our public transit. When will we put an end to this wacko policy by this wacko Prime Minister?
No. That is not there are a couple of things which are going on here today, which is not acceptable. And I ask all members, please, to keep themselves, to control themselves. I'm going to ask two things. One, I'm going to ask the Honourable Leader of the Opposition to withdraw that term, which is not considered parliamentary.
Mr. Speaker, I replace wacko with extremist. He is an
The honourable member to please. I'm going to ask the Leader of the Opposition once again to just withdraw that comment, please. And I'll invite the honourable member. I'm going to ask the Honourable Leader of the Opposition to please withdraw that comment and simply withdraw that comment.
We have Jeremy McKenzie coming up, so hang on. From Diagolon.
Replace it with radical justice policy.
I am not asking to replace. I'm asking the honourable member to just simply withdraw.
Mr. Speaker, I replace the word wacko with extremist.
He's not happy again. Muting that audio. Oh, he's gonna put the hammer down soon. I'm telling you. That's the telltale sign. That microphone gets muted. Right now, they're probably using a series of expletive deletes. Expletive deleted. We're still waiting. Oh, it's an extended pause. He's really upset. Here we go. What are we going to do, Joe? I'll kick him out.
I'm going to ask the Honourable Leader of the Opposition one last time to please withdraw that comment and simply withdraw that comment.
I simply withdraw and replace with the aforementioned adjective.
Oh, boy. This is politics.
Mr. Poilievre, I have to name you for disregarding the authority of the chair. Pursuant to the authority granted to me by Standing Order 11, I order you to withdraw from the House of the many participation by video conference sitting.
Oh, the audio's muted again. Of course, it's his job to maintain order in the house. He always has to be calm. He's just, whoever sits in that chair, they have quite the task, right? What a job, babysitting all these politicians. Yes, Merrick, you're right. Merrick says theater, 100%. Theater, you got it. All theater. Yep. In fact, shortly after this exchange in the House today, I received an email from the Conservative Party of Canada talking about it. And of course, at the very bottom, donate. Pierre Poilievre was kicked out by the Liberal House leader. Donate today to help us fight back. Of course. That's the way it works. Oh, Poilievre is winning here, even though he gets kicked out of the House. This is a big win for him and the Conservatives.
The second matter which I was going to bring up was the fact that I was hearing some catcalling from the far end of the House. I wasn't able to identify the person, but I'll ask all members to carry themselves in a way that is dignified for this House. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition wants to talk about extremism. Well, a week ago, he visited a Diagolon encampment. Diagolon hates that minorities in this country get the same protections as everyone else, and they are charter-protected rights. Just yesterday, a week after the Conservative leader sat down with...
Uh-oh.
I'll ask the honourable member from Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes to please withdraw, to please only take the microphone when he is afforded the opportunity to ask a question. I'll ask the Right Honourable Prime Minister to continue.
Oh man, this is heavy-duty politics.
Minister to finish his question. He has 15
I'll
seconds
tell you who
left
the
on
real
clock.
winner is here.
Mr. Speaker, the association of the Leader of the Opposition with Diagolon and their disdain for charter-protected rights brought them to just yesterday, a week after he sat down with Diagolon members, he gave a speech pledging to overturn the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, the rights of Canadians and our justice system. That's dangerous.
L'honorable député de Belleuil-Chambly.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, I would like to congratulate you on your common sense today.
The Bloc Québécois. Good job, Mr. Speaker. He's sucking up to the Speaker.
If you would like more questions, well, we have many that we could ask. Mr. Speaker, the weapons buyback program, Phoenix pay system, emitting visas, GC strategies, McKinsey, the government's management is really chaotic.
Okay, we don't need to get into all this. All right. Hang on a second here. Okay. You know who the real winner is in all of this? Diagolon. That's the real winner in all of this. A group that, honestly, I don't, would not normally have been mentioned at all. But all because, why? Because they set this whole thing up. I swear to God, they must have. Brilliant. Politically speaking, brilliant. Steal Poilievre's main campaign platform plank, the carbon tax issue. Steal his slogan. do protests as he requested. He said, people should actually get out there and protest. And they said, well, okay, let's go. Now you have protests across the country using that slogan, and they sucked him right in. They got him to actually stop. Now, or maybe it was a deal. Maybe they knew he would stop. I don't know. But as a result of him stopping, it generated it went viral online, mainstream media all over this. They got the Prime Minister to start talking about Diagolon, which is a group that he's supposed to not like. It gets the Liberals and the Conservatives fighting. They're talking about it in the House. The name Diagolon keeps coming up over and over and over and over again. You can't buy publicity like that. Now, a group that most Canadians, even after most Canadians have never heard of Diagolon. That's the truth. But they have now. They sure have now. Diagolon wins in all of this. 100%. We're going to get to Jeremy McKenzie in a moment. I want to show you what else happened, though, as a result of all this. It was not just Poilievre who left the House. It was the whole Conservative caucus, right? So we have Michael Barrett, Member of Parliament, Conservative. Here he is. Bring him up. He'll explain from his perspective.
Hey, so this is unbelievable. Just leaving the House of Commons now with every Conservative Member of Parliament. The entire caucus of His Majesty's loyal opposition has left the House after two MPs, Rachel Thomas and notably Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the opposition, the leader of Canada's Conservatives, being thrown out of the House of Commons by the Liberal Speaker for using the term wacko. Now, why did he use the term wacko? He was talking, of course, about the wacko policies of a Prime Minister who is refusing a request from the NDP government in British Columbia to end his wacko policy that allowed for crack, heroin, for all order of drugs to be legalized. We have nurses terrified to go home to their children because people are smoking crack in hospitals, and they're afraid that they're going to pass this on in breast milk to their children. This is unbelievable. Now, the NDP government in British Columbia has heard the massive outcry and is asking Trudeau to roll back this wacko policy. But they're doubling down. And while he dithers, people die. And people are dying on the streets of British Columbia. And now the Liberals are even considering expanding this to Toronto, to Ontario, which is where of course I'm a member. And so we're calling on the Prime Minister to end this wacko policy that's costing Canadians lives, that's not offering treatment, but is instead offering deadly drugs. People are afraid to take transit. They're finding needles on soccer pitches. They're terrified. And it's time that this policy comes to an end. So the leader of the opposition called this exactly what it is, a wacko policy. And the Liberal Speaker threw the leader of the opposition out of the House of Commons for calling on the Prime Minister to end this deadly policy that he's inflicted on the people of British Columbia and is looking to expand to the people of Ontario. So we're not going to put questions to a government when they're being protected by a speaker who is obviously biased to ensure that they have the protection from the accountability and questions that that we're required to put to the government as His Majesty's loyal opposition. So you won't hear questions from Canada's Conservatives in the House of Commons today because the Liberal Speaker of the House has thrown the leader of the Conservative Party out simply for calling a spade, a Wacko policy, an extreme policy that's deadly. It's costing Canadians lives, and we won't stand for it. We won't be silenced by the Liberal Speaker, and we won't allow the Prime Minister to try and distract and divide from his record that is costing Canadians their lives. So stay tuned for more on this, but we will continue to call out the Liberals for their Wacko policies and their attempt to divide Canadians, to distract from their deadly failures.
Well, he did go a little further than that. He did actually call the Prime Minister a wacko and an extremist. You know, take your pick. They're interchangeable. Oh, what a game, right? And yeah, I see in the comments people saying that Diagolon doesn't actually exist, and it's a thing, right? It's like when they were identified as maybe one of the main reasons for the use of the Emergencies Act during the Freedom Convoy, you know, the defense was that it's not a real thing, it's just a meme. It's a group of guys or veterans, mostly, or whatever, people sort of finding support online. I'll tell you, you know, it is a highly politically charged group, no doubt about it now. And Jeremy, very focused on politics. Jeremy McKenzie, you know, basically the founding member of Diagolon. He's been on this program a couple of times, and not recently, you know, quite a long time ago. But yeah, I mean, there's it's a real thing, but it isn't a real thing, according to the people in Diagolon. Is it real or isn't it? You can decide. The Liberals have decided it's a very real thing. They see it as a threat. They see it as something very serious, and they see it as a group that harbors extreme people with extreme views. That would be their point of view. And I have this post from the Liberal Party where they've been watching some of the online activity of Diagolon, and it's exactly what I told you. All right, they're saying that here. Look, here. It's in their Twitter feed, X. Look what the Liberal Party of Canada is saying. Watch, it says, Diagolon members talk about how they can manipulate Pierre Poilievre. I told you, this is exactly what I've been saying. There's more going on behind the scenes than anybody appreciated with regard to these protests, which is where they sucked Poilievre in. And I've been telling you, somebody's been manipulating things. Well, here's an online Zoom meeting or a show or whatever online with Jeremy McKenzie and a couple other members of Diagolon. And they're talking about exactly that, how they can sort of manipulate politicians. I don't know if they're just focused on Poilievre. Here it seems that they are, but I think that they probably are trying to figure out ways to manipulate all of them. And I'd say that they were pretty successful in this particular instance. It's masterful, actually. And the Liberals are not happy about it. That's why they posted this, to expose the plan.
He needs to appeal to this base of Conservatives that are not on board with Operation Global Homo. And he needs them to win. So the Conservative base, it's our job to basically start pounding him with these questions and holding him to them so that he can't just run away from them. And you see what I'm saying? You can make him do things because he's a weasel. That's what's kind of interesting about him. He needs to appeal to the...
See, I told you, they don't like him. They don't like him at all. They just called him a weasel. They don't... So they're saying, Pierre's our guy. We're in there for Axe the Tax. We're supporting that. But they don't like him at all. The weird thing is, though, as I said the other night, between Poilievre and Trudeau, who actually benefits from this? I think Trudeau, which is why you have other people out there who are trying to analyze this, and they've been trying to analyze Diagolon for a while, and they'll say that Jeremy Mackenzie and Diagolon, it's just control. It's just a it's actually just a front, a liberal front. It's like a double mind screw, right? Where they're saying that their activity actually benefits the Liberals. But I told you that, like, Jeremy is really more aligned with the PPC. He's been involved with the People's Party of Canada. I think that's where his focus is. Although I'm hearing that the whole group is kind of pulled away from the PPC, and they've just adopted the idea that there's no political solution anymore. So I don't know. What is their goal? To just create anarchy? I don't think so. I don't think they just want to create anarchy. They're after a specific political objective here. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe we'll find out when we watch this response now from Jeremy Mackenzie himself. Here's the man. He's just posted, I guess, as people just alerted me in the chat, this online response to all of these, all this political theater. And what you're about to see right off the bat is that Diagolon flag, which is black with a white slash through it on an angle. And for those of you who don't know what that stands for, is if Diagolon had its way, it would create a whole new country by starting with Alaska and going all the way down to Florida and capturing everything in its wake or its path in Canada along the way, all the way down Alaska to Florida in a diagonal slash to create a whole new country, taking in mostly all the oil-rich provinces and states and territories, and they'd have most of, I guess, the wealth. But it's because really those are if you look at where conservative states and provinces are, they all fall pretty much in the path of this flag. If that was North America, that's what it's supposed to be. This is the kind of humor that they use to explain their symbols, what they say, and so on. Government takes this very seriously. Jeremy will tell you it's all a meme or a joke. I've watched some of this stuff. They're pretty serious guys a lot of the time, but Jeremy's also very funny. I think there's definitely a political focus here. How organized or serious they are beyond that, I don't know, but I'll tell you, this seems pretty focused. This seems very sophisticated political maneuvering, but here's Jeremy's response.
Hello, everyone. It is I, odious dirtbag and de facto leader of the Diagolon, Jeremy Mackenzie. I was in court all day and I was already dressed, so don't read into this too much. I've come today to address directly Pierre Poilievre, the Conservative Party, and its supporters. While the previous days have been a source of amusement, bewilderment, and confusion for many, with respect, this undermines the seriousness of the peril our nation has found itself in, yet again, due to the bumbling, inept application of malevolent power from the Prime Minister and his Liberal Party. I've tried very hard to grasp the angles at which the views espoused must be located to come to any kind of conclusion that does not include incompetence, recklessness, or outright malice, but I cannot. First, let me explain Mr. Poilievre's scandalous photo and the Prime Minister's words on this so-called encampment. This protest action was born out of a small orbit of perennial freedom protesters, seemingly quarterbacked by a Mr. Sam Fields. Mr. Fields and I have no relationship, and I have no recollection of any interaction with him. My partner Morgan doodled a Diagolon flag on his trailer door over 2 years ago during the Ottawa protest action, meant as a friendly gesture of support and nothing more. There is no connection between myself, Morgan, or any of the more prominent voices in our makeshift, loose-knit community than that. Any connections being made are tenuous at best and purely coincidental. There is no involvement whatsoever, and I have relayed this to Mr. Fields to immediately remove that drawing from his door, as he does not represent me or our community in any way, and I do not support him. Secondly, if it was not painfully clear to sincerely interested parties after Karim Assad's investigative reporting that can still be observed at hategate.ca from source documents obtained through Freedom of Information requests, that the RCMP's own conclusions through thorough investigations of myself reveal they were unable to locate any noteworthy criminal or violent activity and could not even define Diagolon as a group in any traditional sense. At its core, it is a tightly knit in-group of like-minded folks that enjoy my podcast and commentary. This government used this fantasy narrative painted by the Canadian Anti-Hate Network to enact the Emergency Measures Act in February of 2022. The Canadian Anti-Hate Network, by the way, has been given nearly $1 million in funding by the same Liberal government. I was compelled to testify under oath to my involvement at the Public Order Emergency Commission from custody, which can still be viewed online at your leisure. Now, I have nothing to hide and have since defeated 4 of the 5 trumped-up politically charged cases against me, something the media has conveniently developed a selective memory of. I am not a criminal. I have never been convicted of any crime and have only ever acted in good faith from my 14 and a half years of frontline military service to present day, tried to do and speak to what I believe is the truth and what is in the best interests of our people. Not everyone agrees, and that's okay. It's their right. One thing, most of all, that I cannot abide by and I cannot allow to transpire without challenge is a lie, which is what this Prime Minister and his team have been perpetuating. This is not the first or likely last time the Conservative Party of Canada will have to suffer the indignity of dealing with this island of misfit toys called Diagolon, and it is very clear to my audience as well as the CPC, I'm sure, and Mr. Poilievre himself, that we are not mutual friends. In fact, there's a very deep and I'm sure mutual disdain for one another. However, my personal feelings and opinions aside, I felt compelled to address this ongoing circus act for the good of those trying to parse fact from fiction. The CPC has no connections or affiliations with myself or anyone involved in my circles. These claims by the Liberals are an outright and deliberately malicious fabrication in a desperate and pathetic attempt to sway support away from the Conservative Party momentum that appears overwhelmingly likely to crush the Liberals in any election held anywhere in this plane of reality. I have been and will continue to be a sharp critic of state power, including Mr. Poilievre and his team. Nevertheless, Canadians deserve to know what is true. Not what is popular, not what is convenient, and it is my sincere hope that somehow Mr. Poilievre and his team will succeed in proving me to be impressively incorrect in my assessment of their character and take the opportunity at hand to capitalize on Canadians' anguished need for positive change and start down a path to returning accountability and consequences to the powerful who would wield their authority over the weak for personal gain, as this government has done for the past 9 years. I will not hold my breath, but I will continue to struggle and fight for Canadians in my own way, while I pray that the assuredly incoming Conservative government will do the same. Thank you. Pro Patria.
There you go. That's their statement. You can reconcile that any way you want yourself against what the Liberal Party just posted there. And as I say, man, I don't know exactly what's going on behind the scenes. I guarantee you, though, there's more going on with these protests than meets the eye. For all I know, it's Justin Trudeau and the Liberals that organized these protests or got them going to try and suck Poilievre. I don't know, but there's something weird about the whole thing. It's not entirely organic. And you know, as soon as Poilievre said in that speech when he encouraged people to go out and protest, and then I think it was even the next day, you started seeing online influencers talking about organizing these protests along the sides of highways, and it didn't take long, and you had them out there. They've now been. How many days has it been now for these protests? It's got to be 28 days. Well, it was April 1st was the first day, I believe. That was the Axe the Tax protest day, right? So they've been there all month, an entire month now. I don't know how much longer it'll go on, but there's more going on here, man, than people realize. This is heavy duty politics. This is, I don't know if it's fifth generation warfare, but it may well be. Hang in there, folks. We'll come back on the other side and we'll start. I don't know if I've got anything more to say about this, but we're going to move on. We're going to move on and start digging into some of these other stories of the day. Don't go away.
The information war is raging. Truth without integrity is worth nothing. Maverick News. Because those who have power and those who seek it must be held accountable.
The world is watching.
Join our family of truth seekers. Donate today and add your voice to the chorus of Maverick Knights. Donate at maverickdonations.com. Truth. Integrity. It's the Maverick way. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom.
Tonight, as we speak, NYPD officers are amassing outside Columbia, the campus there, with barricades. Oh, yeah, things are ramping up. What do we know at this point? Well, we know that protesters stormed and occupied a building on Columbia University's main campus last night. They took a Palestinian flag from Hamilton Hall, and they were flying that. They were smashing windows. And protesters went into that building, seizing it. Also, my understanding that they did detain a couple of janitors who were not allowed to leave. That is where the information or the talk about them taking hostages came from. And indeed, that is a fact. For a while, these janitors were detained against their will. Wow, students who are occupying that building are now facing not just suspension, but actual expulsion. This coming from a Columbia spokesperson earlier this afternoon. And Columbia has warned other students to stay away from campus today. They have started to suspend students there who defied an order to leave their pro-Palestinian encampment hours before the students took over the campus building. As you know, yesterday, 2 p.m. was the deadline. The students involved were warned, if you don't take down your encampment tent, leave by 2 p.m., you'll be suspended. Now things are even more serious. So this morning, encampments at the University of Connecticut, Yale, University of North Carolina, at Chapel Hill, all of them were cleared out. About 4 dozen encampments now remain in place on campuses across the United States. We have protests. If you want to call them protests, I don't think these are just protests at this point. I think it's much more serious than that, honestly. We have them in Canada as well. Now. And we've seen clashes between students. We've seen some degree of violence, although nothing, well, not on the scale that, I think a lot of people are afraid it might reach. But we're seeing a lot of trouble, man. This is, I'm gonna assess this, and this is me editorializing to some degree. Be aware that I'm injecting some opinion here. I think the country is under attack. That's how I view this. These are not just organic protests. These are not just students who are upset about something. These are organized. These are choreographed, funded. The resources being brought into play here are uniform in structure. You have tents that all kind of look the same. Even when these things first began, I saw that the signs, for instance, in many instances, are professionally produced. This is not just a bunch of kids who randomly decided to go out and start to protest. This is being fueled. This is the United States, Canada, under attack. Make no mistake. And they're using people who are, generally speaking, activated anyway for these kinds of protests, primarily people who come out in support of, we'll say, left-wing causes like Black Lives Matter, right? We saw the riots after the George Floyd incident, right? And I would say that you've got really sort of the same machinery behind this that you found behind things like the George Floyd protests, the mostly peaceful Black Lives Matter protests that at times really were violent, resulting in burned buildings, businesses. Here's what it looked like when the students took that building at Columbia last night. Right? They're pushing free speech, freedom of assembly, pushing the use of those rights right to the edge, to the max, and I'd say they've crossed the line. My opinion again. The objective here, I would say, by whatever organizations or governments or whomever is facilitating this and helping it along, I would say that the ultimate goal is really, it's just this simple. It's destabilization. Mission accomplished in a very major way. And how are they doing that? They're doing it in a variety of ways, I would say. When these kinds of things are going on, they are funneling money through the back door into organizations that get resources out to encourage this kind of behavior. Some of these people are outside agitators, and a lot of it is fueled by online media. So here's Richard Medhurst. I haven't said too much about Richard Medhurst, but I've been watching him for a while. For a time, I'd never really heard much about Richard Medhurst, really before, say, the Ukraine war, and then he kind of popped onto my radar. And very intelligent, educated, Ivy League school educated, I would say, from a prominent, progressive, liberal, left-wing kind of family, born of his parents, I believe, won a Nobel Peace Prize So, you know, connected, we'll put it that way. Prominent live streamer. Pro-Putin, pro-Russia, pro-Iran, pro-Syria, pro-Hamas, pro-Palestinian. I'd say Richard Medhurst, after watching him, he hates America. And tonight, he's issuing this statement directly to, I believe, the students. I'm going to play it. I'm going to temper this, though. I strongly disagree with this guy and his approach.
I want to directly address all the students who are protesting for Gaza and have set up encampments from Columbia to the Sorbonne. Right now, we have an opportunity to define history, to be remembered as a generation of resistance. The eyes of the whole world are upon you. Right. Your protests have ignited a fire that has spread to Canada, to France, to...
He has been igniting the fire. He's been dumping gasoline on this for a long time, this guy. A long time. Gallons and gallons of high test anger and hate.
Britain and beyond. These are the largest student protests in American history since the Vietnam War, the most politically charged in France since 1968. We as a generation are saying to the world that Israel, Britain, and America are wrong, and we will not be part of their genocide.
Because he hates America. When he says he's an anti-imperialist, he really means he's anti-American. That's really what it means. He hates the United States. He hates the West.
Against Arabs and Palestinians. We demand that these universities, many of which are complicit, divest immediately and unconditionally. Right. And they will try to tell you that the protests are insensitive. They will claim that you don't understand the issue. Zionists will accuse you of being racist.
I understand the issue, and I understand you, Richard, better than you think. You are arrogant.
And that of which they are guilty. For we all know every Zionist accusation is a confession. You see, colonizers will come up with 1,000,001 reasons to defend their racist occupation and why they think that the land they stole belongs to them. Right now, they are scared out of their wits because in order for Zionism and American imperialism to work, they need soft power. They require a good public image.
Just like you, and you're providing it for your side. There's no balance here. Richard Medhurst is not a journalist, as he so self-describes. He is not. He is an activist and a propagandist. He is not a journalist, and he is full of anger.
And right now, we are interrupting their brunch by drawing attention to their crimes. And no, it's not going to be business as usual. These protests are effective, they are morally justified, and they are necessary.
But you see, in a moment, Richard Medhurst is going to escalate this thing and tell you exactly what they are. These are not just protests. No, they're not.
They are truly democratic in their nature. And that is precisely why the police are attacking you. The same military...
What is democratic about screaming and taking over campuses? What I don't understand at all what he means by democratic. You know, when you... This is not democratic. This is illegal, is what it is.
Industrial complex that bombs Gaza arms the police that attack students on campus. The same police that beat up students on campus train with Israeli forces. The same knee that was on Khairi Hanoun's neck was on George Floyd's neck and is now pressed upon Gaza's neck.
Ah, there you go. Conflation. The same knee The same knee. He hates America. Hates America. And he will say and do anything to inflame the situation.
Understand that we are engaging in resistance against imperialism, against Zionism, and against white supremacy.
Against white people, against the United States, against Israel, against the West. He hates the West with every fiber of his being. This guy is full of hate for us. He hates America, he hates Canada, he hates the West.
While the Israelis incur losses on the battlefield, this is another theater of war where they must be confronted and defeated. In the media, in civil society, in academia, in people's hearts and minds. Zionism must be exposed, and we must all do our bit. People in Palestine...
I think Richard Medhurst needs to be exposed. I've bit my tongue. I've said nothing for a long time. But this guy, he's way too much. And he's dangerous.
Are counting on you. Their very lives depend upon it. Unchecked, the imperialists plan to roll into Rafah, and they're already building a pier in Gaza under the pretext of humanitarian aid to establish a military foothold and steal resources. Every second that goes by, someone is buried under the rubble, alive in Gaza, gasping for air, or in pain, being starved to death. This is precisely why we must never give in. People across the entire Arab world all see what you're doing, and they are proud of you.
Yeah, except, you see, that this is propaganda and it's exaggeration. It's not an accurate portrayal of everything going on in there. And he's not telling you that these people who have become casualties have been used as human shields. And that every one of those babies, every child killed, has been sacrificed for the purpose of martyrdom and public relations as part of the information war so that they could videotape them being slaughtered because they knew it would happen. He knew it would happen. And he doesn't care because he hates the West. And for those people doing this, who have allowed this to happen, Hamas and these terrorists who have sacrificed their own people, by poking the enemy and provoking a response. Those people should be ashamed. Look at the sneer on his face. He's full of anger and hate. Immediately after October 7th, he was cheering even before Israel responded. Even before Israel responded. Do you hear me? He was cheering. He was glad to see the Jews slaughtered on October 7th. That's the truth. Richard Medhurst.
This is a solidarity that transcends race, religion, and politics. It is humanity at its best, at its purest and most vibrant form. Remember to always stay focused on the crimes of the occupation. Always, no matter what. Never give in to agitators. Never allow racists among your ranks. Remember...
You are the useful idiots that Richard Medhurst is calling to arms tonight.
The FBI will try to infiltrate you,
so
as they did to other movements, and cause infighting or try to make you look bad. The more you continue, the more people you inspire to do the same across other campuses around the world. Occupy the lawns, occupy the classrooms, occupy the administrative buildings, the courtyards, occupy the entire damn university. How dare they tell you that this is wrong while they occupy Palestine and Syria and butcher its people?
We are at war. The country is under attack. Do you understand, ladies and gentlemen? Your country is under attack. You have been subjected to several years of the most sophisticated psyop in history. You have been subjected to several years now of information warfare and propaganda coming from the likes of him. I'm almost embarrassed to say that I've allowed some of that information to pour in through our channel. But everything I've done here, I've tried to do with some balance, and I've been acting in good faith. Not so with him. Not so with him. A lot of what he has said has a place, and it deserves to be aired. But what he's doing is attacking America, and he is inciting people to violence. He is inciting people to attack America by using these weaponized, mob-fueled, mob-driven, I'm not even going to call them protests. They're attacks at this point. They've taken over. They've seized a building. You know, if somebody dresses like a terrorist, if they act like a terrorist, if they carry out terroristic-like activities, I'm going to call them terrorists. They've covered their faces so you can't see who they are. They've taken over buildings. They've vandalized things. They're terrorizing people. They've taken over the streets. They're doing everything they can to disrupt. They detained people. I think probably the only reason you didn't actually have a full-scale hostage taking at Colombia is because somebody realized that it would be really bad PR. But it started. And everything that they do that is wrong, they just deny as though it never happened. Or they flip it around and blame it on America. I'm tired of it. And it's always the CIA, the CIA, the CIA. Yeah, I'm surprised he hasn't said it's the CIA this time. Well, I guess he has, hasn't he? They always do. It's just the simple go-to answer all the time now. Just blame the CIA in America. It's your fault, folks. It's your fault. Make no mistake. Once they get done with the Jews, they're coming for you. This is the same group of people that we've seen over the years. The Occupy group, the far left, which is wrapping around and coming into to convergence with the far right, the crazy extremists. I'll let him continue.
You're bringing drums to the protest? Drum harder. You're screaming at the protest? Scream harder. You brought a friend with you today? Bring 10 tomorrow. You're now on the front lines. None of us are free until Palestine is free.
Ah, you're on the front lines. Yes, you see? It's not just a protest. It's a war. And he's quite right. What you're witnessing on these campuses, it's a war. And this is Richard Medhurst's call to arms. This is Richard Medhurst's declaration of war against America, Canada, the West. Does he look like a happy guy? No. He's an enemy of America. This guy, with his keffiyeh, which isn't just a keffiyeh, it's a political statement. He's a politically hypercharged propagandist, and he's inciting people to violence.
University. How dare they tell you that this is wrong while they occupy Palestine and Syria and butcher its people? You're bringing drums to the protest? Drum harder. You're screaming at the protest? Scream harder. You brought a friend with you today? Bring 10 tomorrow. You're now on the front lines.
Independent journalist, independent propagandist. He's not a journalist, folks. Heads are blowing up right now because I'm telling you this, because I'm saying it, but I'm saying it because it's true. And I told you, I made a vow to you. I promised you all a long time ago that I would never lie to you. And I haven't. But I've allowed people to come on this program with a wide range of views. A lot of people I don't agree with. Some I do, some I don't. I really don't agree with him. And you know I stand against violence, and I don't care where it comes from. I don't like war. I don't like violence. I don't like people getting hurt. And I don't like people being manipulated. And that's what he's doing. He's been doing it for a long time. He disgusts me. Cheering for the deaths of Jews on October 7th. On October 7th. A punch in the jaw, and he was happy about it. That's the way he described it. And now he wants you to go down to those campuses and take the risks. Put your body on the line. Go fight. Why? Why are we fighting here over Palestine? Why are we fighting on the campuses here over Palestine? Why does he want you out here fighting for Palestine? Why does he want you taking over a university campus, engaging in illegal acts? Why is he encouraging people to get involved in illegal activity here? Because it's his job to jack you up and get you out there to commit these acts on behalf of people that you don't even know. You think you're out there fighting for something, but that's not what you're fighting for. It's politics. You're fighting to kill your own country. You're fighting against yourself. That's the brilliance behind this psyop and this information war. They've got people in America. They've got Americans fighting Americans. They've got Canadians fighting Canadians. They've got us fighting with each other over a conflict on the other side of the world. It's not going to be resolved very easily at all. And you inject those same issues here, not going to resolve them very easily here either. And me saying all of this is not going to change much. And you know what? I'm going to lose a lot of friends and maybe a bunch of viewers tonight. But I don't give a damn because it's the truth. And he's not the only one doing it. There's a whole network of them. And some people making really bad choices, I would say, in the last week or two. Some of these major online influencers with way bigger audiences than I have. And look at the change in the tone. They've pivoted on the issue. Taking a hard stance now. It's propaganda. Every one of those children, every baby that was killed in Gaza, you know who to blame? Hamas. Now, I told you I'm not in favor of what Netanyahu did. I don't think they should have gone in as hard as they did. Shouldn't have responded that way because that was the trap. That was what Hamas wanted. That's what they were expecting. They knew it would happen. Medhurst knew it would happen. He's connected. He's a lot more powerful than me. He's a lot bigger than me online. He's way more established than me. And he comes from, I'm just a peasant. All right? Now, I'm just a common guy from a common family. I'm just a little old Canadian sitting up here. I'm a nobody. He's somebody. That guy. He's connected. he could do great things. He could help facilitate peace. He could help bring an end to this. But that's not what he's doing. No, that's not his job. His job is to help destroy America. You know, that's the thing about October 7th, is it's taken the masks off a lot of people. Now you can see them for what they really are, a lot of them. Not all of them. Some of them are still lurking in the shadows, or they're cloaked. And they use these narratives to disguise their real motivations and their ideologies. And these old labels, fascist, Nazi, socialist, communist, they don't really apply anymore, because who in their right mind is going to try to sell a political movement, or sell themselves even as a Nazi today? Not very many people. Well, there are some, but not a lot. I mean, it's coming out slowly over time. But what is a Nazi? What is a nationalist? I'll tell you this. Vladimir Putin, Russia, very nationalistic. Very nationalist. And there's some ultra-nationalists on the Russian side. And you'll find nationalists in Ukraine, and even ultra-nationalists and neo-Nazis. But you'll find those in every country all the way around the world. I try to judge people as individuals. Richard Medhurst wants violence. He wants blood. He wants you to head out onto the front lines, go to war. You want to go fight for Richard Medhurst? Because that's who you're fighting for. Richard Medhurst and whoever it is that's above him signing the checks. You keep that in mind if you're a student or anybody else, and you're thinking of heading out to protest. I've come out so many times over the past couple of years warning people about these protests, because they're not just protests. It's a weapon. They're weapons. It's a kind of weapon. They're mobilizing massive numbers of people to get out into the streets to destabilize our countries, the United States and Canada. I'm afraid to look in the chat, because every time I tell people the truth, I get hammered. I don't give a damn. Of course, you know, Richard Medhurst seems to think self-immolation is the greatest thing somebody can do to serve the cause. What's stopping him? Yeah, where's his self-sacrifice? I'm waiting. I'll check in on him tomorrow.
The information war is raging. Truth without integrity is worth nothing. Maverick News. Because those who have power and those who seek it must be held accountable.
The world is watching.
Join our family of truth seekers. Donate today and add your voice to the chorus of Maverick Knights. Donate at maverickdonations.com. Truth. Integrity. It's the Maverick way. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, how about one of the main organizers of Columbia saying that the university is obligated to bring them food after occupying the building there. Who's the occupier now? Oh, man.
Why should the university be obligated to provide food to people who've taken over a building?
Well, first of all, we're saying that they're obligated to provide food to students who pay for a meal plan here.
But you mentioned that there was a request that food and water be brought in, unless I misunderstood.
To allow it to be brought in. I mean, well, I guess it's ultimately a question of what kind of community and obligation Columbia feels it has to its students. Do you want students to die of dehydration and starvation or get severely ill, even if they disagree with you? If the answer is no, then you should allow basic, I mean, it's crazy to say because we're on an Ivy League campus, but this is like basic humanitarian aid we're asking for. Like, could people please have a glass of water?
But they did put themselves in that very deliberately, in that situation and in that position. So it seems like you're sort of saying, we want to be revolutionaries, we want to take over this building, now would you please bring us food and water?
Nobody's asking them to bring anything. We're asking them to not violently stop us from bringing in basic humanitarian aid.
They're stopping the delivery of food.
We are looking for a commitment from them that they will not stop it
but
violently.
They haven't stopped it.
Well, I don't know to what extent it has been attempted, but we're looking for a commitment.
And the Grubhub.
I'm so tired of their crap. I'm just so tired of the juvenile, ridiculous crap, and it's not so juvenile because it's the same crap that you're hearing out of Gaza and Hamas. And you know, the casualty numbers, where do they come from? From Hamas. So the numbers that the media reports come from Hamas. I would say that the numbers are disputable. I would say that everything we're getting out of there is questionable in terms of information. I know that there's been a lot of devastation, and I know there's been a lot of death. I don't know what the real numbers are. I don't think we'll know for quite a long time. But it's the same crap. It's like they flip everything upside down. They point the finger. They blame the other side. They say that everything bad that happens to us or happens to Israel, happens to the United States, it's always our own fault. We always do it to ourselves. No, on October 7th, these Hamas terrorists attacked civilians in Israel and slaughtered them. That's what happened. That's what happened. Israel didn't do it to itself. There may have been a lapse or a inadequate security or intelligence that resulted in the attack being successful, but Israel did not do this to itself. It's ridiculous. I'm tired of it. So I'm sitting here tonight just telling you the truth. The real truth. What's truth? Well, sometimes the truth is right in front of you, and you just have to open your eyes and be willing to see it. And the absurdity of what she has just said. If you don't want students dying of dehydration, all we're asking for is a glass of water. To quote Ronald Reagan, shut up. Seriously.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
Ron DeSantis down in Florida acting like a real leader. Again. Intelligent, thoughtful, creative in the way he approaches government and governance. Tonight, talking about expediting the process through which students can enter the state and attend classes there. In particular, students who feel threatened in other states. Here he is explaining.
I think if you read that decision on the ballot initiative, the 3 women justices dissented, and I think they pointed out that you can sit there and read that, and these terms are not defined. For example, people will sometimes say, yeah, I'm pro-life, I believe.
Oh, I think maybe I have the wrong clip.
Let the doctor make the decision. People will say that.
Let me just check this for you. Yeah, that's not the right clip. I'm sorry, folks. Yeah, DeSantis. He's opening the state up to students who are feeling threatened. Yeah, I have the wrong clip. You know what? Give me a second. I'm going to take a quick break. I'm going to cue that up because it's I think it's important. So let me take a quick break. I shall return on the other side of this.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarmingly, some media publish things simply aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think, and this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
In an ocean of lies a century deep, the truth awaits. Choose not the red pill. Choose not the blue pill. For both are an illusion. Discover the power of M. The power of individuality. We are Mavericks. We are the way to the light. Fear not the storm. Join our quest for truth. Truth will set you free. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, so I've got it here, and yeah, what DeSantis has done is he's they're waiving the transfer rules for students from other states who are feeling threatened. Here he is explaining.
Our transfer rules, because usually you have to be in another university for a certain period of time. We're going to be waiving that for students who are being discriminated against. Largely right now, that's Jewish students in this country, given what's going on. Our rules aren't limited to that. I mean, if there's other people that are in a bad environment, we do. But I think you're going to see some of these students in some of these schools to say, you know what, the hell with it. Why would I want to put myself through that and be targeted by these rage mobs on campus? I can come to Florida and actually know that I can study in a good environment and be treated with respect. So I think you're going to start to see a lot of people take us up on that offer. We won't know until the fall semester, but we're a much different environment, and people are noticing that. And what we're doing is the right thing to do. And it's sad that what we're doing is even noticeable, because this should just be kind of how all this is. You know, it used to be you would have some of this campus stuff, you know, maybe at like a Berkeley or in some of these pockets, but now it's kind of become the norm all across most of the United States. I think Florida certainly is an exception, and then there's some others that are exceptions. And the same thing with just outside of university campuses. You know, you have these pro-Hamas people taking over bridges and taking over streets in other parts of the country. You know, they tried to take over a street in Miami, and they got dragged off the street and dumped on the side of the road. We're not going to let you take over the streets. It's absurd that you're going to make people wait in traffic and do all that stuff. It doesn't make sense. So I'm proud of what we have to offer with the natural resources in this, but I'm also just leading with common sense and saying, you know what? Florida is going to be a refuge from the insanity that we see in so many other parts of the country. All right, we have any questions?
My question is, Dennis Johnston, I don't know what this is about. I mean, obviously it's about what I said regarding Diagolon. Laurie Spencer, Rick wants to put his money where his mouth is. You can always reach out to Mackenzie for debate. Well, I wasn't looking for a debate, and I don't think I criticized Jeremy or even Diagolon in what I said. I think there was another comment from Dennis in here saying, where did I get my information? They said it. What, because I said that they don't like Pierre Poilievre, even though they've endorsed him? Which I think is hilarious. They've endorsed Poilievre, which prompted another response in the House. Brilliant. Where Trudeau was again calling on Poilievre to, you know, disavow Diagolon. And then they created the meme where it was Jeremy's head saying, you'd say it, you gotta say it, or something like that. And then they had Justin Trudeau saying the word Diagolon in the meme, which just reinforces my point. Who really won here? Diagolon won. Everybody's talking about Diagolon now. Anyway, if Jeremy Mackenzie wants to come on this show, he can come on the show. No issues. I don't know what... Am I missing something here, Dennis? I don't quite understand. I'm just... I'm waiting for Laurie Spencer's response. Well, I don't know that she needs to respond. I'm the one yakking, unless she said something in the chat. She can speak for herself. She can... She's a grown up, and she's quite competent and smart. She can handle it, whatever it is. I just don't know what it is you want, or why you might be... I don't understand the comments. But anyhow. And let Jeremy speak for himself. Richard? Who's me, Richard? I just ran his whole statement, unedited, as he presented it. I did let him speak, and he can come on. He can come on right now if he wants. Come on tomorrow. Come on the next... I don't care. We've had him on before. I'm quite happy to speak with Jeremy Mackenzie. No issues. I don't think it would necessarily be a debate, but I think we'd have an interesting discussion, because this is all about politics. I don't know. And Johnston 666 says Dennis might be trying to cause BS. Quite possibly. Yeah, we've got a few of those people who come around from time to time. I don't know. I don't know. And here's Dennis. When it comes to world events in war, Rick couldn't tread well. I see. Why don't you come on, Dennis, and you and I'll have a discussion. Are you ready? Or do you want me to not put you up there yet, Laurie? There you are.
Well, hello. I just thought I'd sneak up on you and surprise you. Boo! I snuck in.
Yeah.
Hey, I just wanted to come on and personally thank you for what you said today and your moral clarity. It's needed right now. Thanks. Because I know you don't read the chat, and you probably didn't see what I was typing. So
No, I have no idea what's going on in there. I'm totally confused, but I'm not surprised that some heads are blowing up and I'm under attack, or so it seems. I don't know if that's what it is.
No, see, that's why you should read the chat.
I guess
most people agree with you. I think the best way I could sum it up is the silent majority. The majority of Americans, and probably Canadians too, who haven't lost their minds yet, they understand that it's wrong to prevent any student paying tuition access to their university. They should have the use and enjoyment of all the buildings, all the grounds, all the public spaces,
That's right.
free from being harassed by gangs of, people who are tormenting them or worse. We've seen this turn violent in a few instances. That means the Zionist kids too. They're entitled to an education too. And it's that simple. And we dealt with this back in the 60s at the University of Ole Miss at Oxford and at the University of Alabama. Remember the George Wallace standing in the doorway incident to keep the black kids from coming onto campus? We settled that. We settled that with the 1964 Civil Rights Act, which was introduced by JFK. President Kennedy signed into law after he died by Lyndon Johnson. I thought this issue was settled a long, long time ago. And it should be.
Unfortunately, I don't think it's ever going to be possible to completely stamp out prejudice, racism. It has to be, forever vigilant, right? That's what we need to be.
Exactly. And we need leaders like you. So I tell you what, I'll be right back. I've got somebody knocking at the door. I got UPS here with a delivery. I'll be right back.
I'm still here. Yeah, okay. Well, those are kind words. Not easy for any of us these days to stay on target and keep our heads screwed on straight. We're all subjected to so much information, and it is information overload. And, as I see these mass protests happening right now, you know what it comes to mind? The pandemic and what can only be described as mass formation psychosis that gripped the nation at that time. All of these things are fueled by emotion, fear, anger, mostly. It's no different here. It was the same thing during the pandemic. That's how they convinced everybody to put their masks on, stand on the little footy print things on the stickers on the floor, get everybody to just fall into line and do the things that they needed to have done. And, people's views even now are, they vary, but they certainly used fear at the time to get people to take certain actions, right? Same thing here. And there's a mob mentality that comes with this stuff. And in addition to that, people tend to when you're dealing with a mob, people want to go with the side that they think is winning as well. That's why the information war is so darn important. Because then it doesn't even matter if you're losing. If you can convince people that you're winning, you get the public on side. And as I've been saying for months, even when it comes to the funding for Israel, for Ukraine, for Taiwan, the wars, all of this stuff, they need your support. Public relations, that's what it's all about. And I've said, if one country can convince the population in another country not to support funding for a war, you cut the funding off, you win the war. That's what's largely been going on over here in North America as well. That's why these online influencers have been so aggressive about what they're doing there too. As I've said from the beginning, I didn't want that war in Ukraine to start, and I don't want anybody dying, and I want it to come to an end. Same thing in Gaza. But at a certain point, man, you have to understand that you're under attack. These protests, they're not protests in the streets. This is warfare. Fifth generation warfare. And this is just one aspect of it. And you're on the front lines if you go out there.
Don't.
Good idea.
My advice. My advice would be just don't go out there unless you want to brawl. And I think, Rick, a lot of these kids are just looking for a fight. They just want to fight. They don't understand the history of this conflict. They don't. They've been indoctrinated into a certain version of history by their professors. You know, someone was asking in the chat earlier, where did they learn this? And I said, from their professors. That's where they learned it. And the professors are at the protesting right alongside them, getting arrested right alongside them. And yes, most of them are professors of Marxism, Marxist history, and all kinds of race and genealogy studies. And why is that? Because Nazis have always been infatuated with race and race studies and eugenics and all that stuff. That was happening at the Ivy League American universities in the 1920s, 30s. Eugenics was a thing. And by the way, Columbia, Harvard, a lot of these grand old Ivy League schools in the 30s were openly supportive of the Nazi regime for those very reasons, I might add. They endorsed the Nazi race policies. They endorsed the Nuremberg laws. So when you understand that, it's not so surprising to see what's being taught right now. And by the way, remember the other night on Strange Bedfellows when I said that there aren't any pro-Hamas protests happening at the University of Oklahoma campus? I should say this, that's my alma mater, and I'm very proud of my school right now. And I went to two schools. I went to OU for a couple of years, and then I moved to Texas, and I went to the University of Texas at Austin, which is a very liberal, practically communist school, right? And you've seen the protests at UT. They just had another big one yesterday where they clashed with police, and it got pretty ugly. So I got two totally different types of education, and it was good for me to go to a normal college like OU and then go to UT for a couple of years and see the difference in what's being taught. But I wanted to say there's a history professor that I had at OU named Stephen Norwood, actually a very well-known history professor, and he's written a couple of books about the Ivy League campuses in the 1930s and how they endorsed Nazi Germany and even worked with Nazi Germany. And I think it's a book that they are two books that everyone should read. I posted a link in chat earlier where you can find his books. But he's the reason, largely, why we're not having pro-Hamas protests here in Oklahoma at the OU campus, because we have good professors here who teach real history. That's important.
Well, I think it's important to also to acknowledge that we had a lot of soldiers in World War II that went to fight against the Nazis.
Right.
And
yeah, they changed their tune after Pearl Harbor.
And even, well, there was, and even now, even though we have a guy in the White House who is a problem, it's still the United States that is the beacon of hope for the entire world and for freedom. And that's why we need to protect it. And that's why we need to understand that we are under attack. And we need to save the damn country.
Did you see the video of Ami Horowitz, who I think he went to Columbia where this happened. He just went there with an American flag, and he went to the protest and he unfurled the flag, and like 20 of these jihadists jumped him and physically kicked the shit out of him and ran him off.
I didn't see that. I didn't see it, but I'm not
I'll
surprised.
see if I can cue it up for you. I'll find it. I had it posted earlier, but I did want to show you this. Let me pull my screen up. All I can say, guys, is that people who are on the right side of history don't cover their faces. Period. Photo speaks for itself. What are they afraid of? Why are they covering their faces? And when I posted that, I got a lot of people commenting, of course, the pro-Hamas people who follow me for some weird reason. They said, well, Lori, it's because of all the cameras and, you know, all this biometric facial recognition. I said, yeah, exactly. You're afraid of the consequences of your own actions because you know what you're doing is wrong. Otherwise, you wouldn't cover your face.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Jelly bean?
Yeah, that's what somebody does when they're robbing a bank or committing some sort of a crime or engaging in terrorism. You, you know, you put that thing over your face with the eyes cut out.
Yeah. Well, you know, that's why every bank has a sign on the door up until COVID that no face coverings are allowed inside the bank.
Yep.
Right? And then COVID came along and they just suddenly forgot about that rule and it was okay to wear a face covering in the bank. But yes, most places have laws against that sort of thing. You can't mask up like that, cover your face in public because it's assumed naturally that you're up to no good.
And we're seeing that in the streets. Like, I'm sorry, I'm all for protests and people should, you know, I'll defend that to the end and people's right to say what they want to say. But at a certain point, it goes beyond that. And what we're seeing now, it's not protests. It's a war. It looks very much like a color revolution, frankly.
It is,
That's what
brother.
it looks like.
It is.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. I found that video. I thought it was Columbia. It's actually City University of New York. I knew that Ami was in New York, but the hell, they've got 4 different protests going in New York City at 4 different colleges, not just Columbia. So he went to CUNY, and let me pull that up for you. This, I have to show this. It's just so absolutely wild and crazy. You guys have got to see it.
I'm not scared of shit, man. I'm not scared of shit. I'm Ami Horowitz, and there are protests breaking all across the country on our campuses. These are people who purport to support the Palestinians, but in reality, they simply have a base hatred for Israel. They also have a hatred for the United States. So I'm here on the campus of City College of New York, where there's an encampment and a protest. I'm simply going to go into the middle. I'm going to wave the American flag without saying a word. Let's see what happens. Don't touch me! American! American! I'm an American. Hey, give my flag! Hey, give my flag! What the fuck, man? Hey! It's America! What the fuck, man? Oh, don't fucking hit me!
Get out of here! Get out of here! No, get out of here!
No, I'm not.
Get out of here! Get out of here!
Hey!
Get out of here! Get out of here!
Fuck, man! Get the fuck off me!
Get out of here! Get out of here!
No,
Get out of here! Get out of here!
No!
You're not going nowhere! You ain't going nowhere!
This is robbery! Leave! No! Leave! Hey, don't fucking hit me!
Get the fuck out of here!
Don't fucking hit me!
The fuck out of here!
Don't fucking hit me, motherfucker! My hands are up! Hands up, don't shoot! Hands up, don't shoot! Hands up!
You're insane.
Don't hurt me!
Get out of here!
I'm an American! I'm an American! Yo!
We're all American, man. Come on.
Great, so I'm sorry.
You gotta go. You gotta go, please.
I'm an American.
You gotta go, man.
Get the fuck off me, man. Don't fucking push me.
Nobody push him.
Don't fucking push me.
leave.
I'm an American. The fuck, man? I'm a fucking American.
You gotta go.
I'm an American. I want to go to city campus. Oh, fuck, man.
What are you doing?
What
are you doing?
I'm not getting off campus. Get the fuck off of me.
Get out!
Are you gonna hurt me?
Get out!
You gonna attack me? I'm not scared of shit, man. I'm not scared of shit. Come down to me.
Get out!
I'm not scared of shit.
Bye!
I'm not scared of shit.
You gotta go.
I'm an American.
You gotta go.
No, man.
You gotta go.
I'm an American. I'm an American. I'm an American. I can do what I want. I can do what I want. Don't touch me.
Yeah. Listen to me.
Don't choke me. What the fuck? I'm a fucking American. I want to go to campus.
You can go to hell.
Stop. Yeah, man. I'm not leaving. You can punch me all you want. I'm not leaving.
حبيبي
Hey, you just fucking choke me? Get off of me. Don't fucking choke me. Don't fucking choke me. You fucking headbutted me, motherfucker.
Stop, yo, what the hell is
I'm not fighting.
You gotta stop.
I'm not fighting.
Don't hurt him, don't hurt him.
I'm not fighting. You guys are punching me. You guys are fucking punching me.
Guys.
Excuse me. They just punched me and choked me.
Stop this guy, man. I'm gonna get him out of here. Walk back. Walk back. Walk
They just
back.
punched
Walk
me and
back.
choked me.
Take him out.
Hey, they're punching me. What am I doing?
Get the fuck over here. Let's
Dude.
go.
Dude, what the hell?
Let's go.
I'm trying to go on campus.
Shut up.
Do you see me do anything? Okay, we are not in America anymore. Boys and girls, we are not in America. We're in some kind of weird police state. So I just got out of the police station. I went to this protest with an American flag on a city college that I and all American taxpayers pay for, and I got my ass kicked. I was punched, I was choked, I was thrown down a flight of stairs. And yeah, that's how the Palestinian protesters are dealing with anybody. They are thugs, they're animals, they're outside agitators, they're people from school, and yeah, this is what is going on our campuses. Well, they will attack somebody who's just walking up with an American flag. Nothing about Israel, nothing about Jews. They hate America. Let's be very clear about what's going on here. They hate this country. That's what we're dealing with in this country.
I love RA. That's one brave Jew right there. That's what we need. We need some spunky Jews out there. And there are some. Have you seen the guy out at UCLA? I don't know his name. But there's this one Jewish kid who's real feisty. And he's been going to UCLA every single day, just trying to get to class. But he films it and posts it.
Oh,
on
is this
Twitter.
the
What
guy who
happens
keeps
to him?
running into the people who are blocking his access?
Yes.
Yeah, I
yes.
ran him
That's
yesterday.
him.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what? I truly believe that the answer to anti-Semitism is pro-Semitism. It's time to say, you know what? Jews are pretty awesome. I like them. I have a lot of Jewish friends. I have a lot of Zionist friends. They're damn nice people. They're awesome. Sorry, haters, if you're out there in the chat. If you're an anti-Semite who hates Jews, I don't care. Bite me. Eat it.
Just too much hate in the world all the way around, too much prejudice, too much bigotry.
Exactly.
And,
well, you know, he said something there at the end of that video that I thought was so important. He said, this isn't about Israel anymore. It's not about Palestine. It's not about Gaza. It's about America. It's about, and Canada. It's about law and order. Like I said when I came on, we already have laws to deal with this. The Civil Rights Act. It's about equal rights for everyone in our public places and on our college campuses. And it's about that. It's not about that. The Israel-Palestine, it doesn't matter what the reason is that they're there protesting. The point is you're illegally occupying public spaces and you're preventing other people from using those public spaces who have a right to be there. And you're bigots because there's no other reason to do it.
Yeah.
Did you see the video? I don't know if you showed the one of, did you see Alex Stein, 99, at my alma mater of UT, Austin, yesterday?
No.
Oh, boy. Man, let me see if I can find that one for you. I think I found it, yeah. Let me cue this up. He got his ass kicked, too. And that was sad, because once again, that's the school I went to. And to me, that's very unwelcoming, very un-Texan. UT was always a bastion of free speech, even if it was liberal, really liberal, bordering on communist. But they always believed in free speech. It was one of those universities kind of like Berkeley, right?
Yeah, that's
but
kind of
Berkeley's
got out the window.
changed.
Yeah.
It's out the window, exactly. So let me pull this up for you. It's a quick little video. This is what happened when our buddy Alex Stein, 99, went to UT Austin yesterday.
Fuck out of here. We're here, UT Austin, where I just got assaulted by transgender pro-Palestine people. I didn't realize gay for Palestine was actually real. But watch this video. Hey, can I ask you a question? In Palestine, aren't they mean to trans people? Aren't they mean to trans people? We're here, UT Austin, and trans people are out here protesting for Palestine, but don't Palestinians throw gay people off roofs? Yeah, no, I'm just gonna hang out right here. Can anybody tell me about, do they do any pride parades? Get the fuck out of here. Dude, what are you gonna do about it? You guys are all idiots. You guys are transgenders, but you guys aren't even allowed to be in Palestine. I know, but you know.
Uh-oh.
Oh my God!
Damn.
Get the fuck out!
Gays for Palestine movement.
You're not from around here, are you, boy? Yeah. You know, I'm from the South, Rick, and not everyone from the South is a racist bigot. By the way, we take more offense to that sort of thing than the folks up north do. Where are the problems on the college campuses? The North, the West Coast. You don't see that happening much down south. And isn't it interesting? Because in the 60s, things have completely flipped on their head. In the 60s, the racist bigots and all the problems at the universities were in the South. And of course, it was the Democratic Party that was the party of Jim Crow, the party of bigotry, the party that supported this sort of thing. President Kennedy and Lyndon Johnson took a huge political risk by speaking out against it. By introducing a civil rights bill, there were so many people, Democratic Party leaders in 1963, by the way, most of whom were racist Southern bigots, who told President Kennedy, shut up about civil rights. You're going to lose the South in 64. He was up for re-election when he went to Texas. That ill-fated trip to Texas. A lot of what those Texans were angry about was the civil rights bill that he had just introduced. So it's interesting, isn't it, that now it's the southern states and the Republicans who are standing up for civil rights. You saw Governor Ron DeSantis today saying, Florida, hey Jews, come on down to Florida. You're safe here. Come enroll this fall.
You know, I've always liked DeSantis. During the pandemic, I think he was one of the strongest leaders, if not the strongest in the United States.
Fearless.
Yes, and creative in the way he was governing the state. I agree. You know, when things were sort of things did sort of get locked down in Florida, but not entirely. And
not
when
for long.
when they were slow and things were at that state, you know what he did? He doubled up on the work being done on highways because guys are outside where they were low or no risk of contracting the disease. So there's no traffic. Let's fix all the roads. It was brilliant. What a great leader.
Yes, I loved that. And I've always liked him, and my admiration for Governor DeSantis just went up today when he did that.
Yeah.
And I hope that more states will do the same. Follow suit. Make them sanctuary states for Jews.
Yeah.
I think that sends a very powerful message. And right now, I'm proud of the South. I wasn't proud to be from the South in the 1960s. And growing up here, I witnessed my fair share of racism, even as a kid in the 70s, but we overcame it. And if you come to Oklahoma or most parts of Texas today, you'll find that it's not a racist place at all. Southern folks are very welcoming now, and you'll find the most racist mofos back in New England, though. Look in Boston, look at New York. You know, look at Connecticut. Look at those Ivy League schools.
Well, you know, it's because this is really all this stuff is coming from the progressive, woke left.
Yep.
And the extreme left and the extreme right, which is coming together. And it's interesting. I was listening to the great George Galloway.
Oh, no.
Being interviewed on what's his nuts show?
What's his nuts? Who?
The Buddhist turned Christian guy, Russell Brand.
Oh, Russell Brand. Yeah.
Yeah. I was curious about his Christian conversion. So I clicked on a video today, and it was got a great Judge Galloway, and he's talking about exactly that. How, you know, these lefties are coming together with the righties, and they're all living happily together under one big bigoted umbrella. I'm like, yeah, you know, that's what I've been telling everybody's going to be happening over the last couple of years. I've been predicting that, and there he is talking about it openly. You know, I won't get into a lot of the details. Maybe I'll talk about it more tomorrow night.
Yeah, I'd like to see some clips from that. I missed the interview. Well, you know, George was a good friend of mine until October 7th.
Of course.
Unfortunately, I've lost a lot of friends on the left in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
A lot of my old lefty friends have gone full Hamas.
Full Islamo-fascist.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're mad at me because I won't join them in their hate parade.
Yeah.
They get very angry at you when you won't accept their point of view.
Yeah.
Which is why they're authoritarians, and why, as a libertarian, I've never liked authoritarians. You know, the thing about the left, the authoritarian left, is they're going to cram that point of view right down your throat, right? You agree with us or else. We're going to take this building. You're canceled. We're going to block the road. We're going to take the building. We're going to throw glue on a beautiful painting. We're going to do everything we can to make your life miserable until you agree with us.
Yep.
Right? And hell no. The more you try to push me into a corner and say, well, you support Israel, you support genocide, you like little dead babies, don't you, Lori? No. Nobody ever said that. I certainly don't believe that.
Right.
I don't even believe that what Israel's doing is a genocide. And like I said yesterday, by the way, hypocrites, all you hypocritical college kids and hipsters out there, you can sure bring a lot of numbers out to protest the war in Gaza. Where have you been the last 2 years? Why aren't you protesting the genocide of Russians by Ukrainians, or the genocide of Ukrainians by Russians? Those two countries are not in a declared war. Let me say that again. There's been no declaration of war between Ukraine and Russia. You know that, right?
Special military operation.
It's a special military operation from the Russian side. On the Ukrainian side, they've never actually declared war. So these two countries, and everybody knows it's a war. Why are we fooling ourselves with the words special military operation? It's obviously a war. It's been a war for 2 years, and yet both sides, for whatever reason, haven't declared a war. But by the most conservative of estimates, you've got at least 500,000 dead on both sides, right? That's military and civilian casualties. You want to call that a genocide? What is that? Is that genocide or is it war? And wouldn't we apply the same standard then in Gaza? And at least Israel did declare war on Hamas on October 7th, the same day. Remember? We were on the air that night. And we read the declaration of war as it came across the wire.
And indeed, I would say that what was done on October 7th was an act of war.
Of course.
Yep.
Of course it was.
So, and that's the thing I think a lot of people also fail to understand is that if you go into a war, you don't hit back proportionally. You go into war to win. If you're really being led by someone who is worthy of being a leader. If you're in a war, you should be in it to win it. And that is what Israel embarked on, was not a special military operation. It wasn't, a tit for tat. It wasn't, we had 1,200 or 1,300 people slaughtered, so we're going to go slaughter 1,300 people of yours. No, that was Hamas committing an act of war against Israel after, honestly, during a state of, during what was supposed to be a ceasefire, but Israel under constant attack anyway. But then they finally get through, kill all those people. That's an act of war. And the people...
And by the way, that act of war specifically targeted civilians.
It did, which is, in my view, a war crime in itself.
Exactly.
All right? And Israel then responds by formally declaring war. And Hamas sitting there and using their people as human shields. As I already explained. But this isn't like... You go to war, you should go in it to win it and end it quickly, because you don't want these things to drag on and drag on and drag on and drag on. You want to get it over with quickly, and hopefully the enemy responds rationally and they say, wait a minute, let's not do this. Let's have peace talks and come to a resolution so people don't die. But no, that's not what Hamas did either. They refused to give up the hostages. They just tortured the hostages. They've killed most of the hostages. It isn't even clear if any of those hostages are still alive. And isn't it interesting that even today, we don't even hear much about the hostages anymore? Yeah. And that's in itself inexcusable. Whoever might still be alive is suffering immensely. And the war crimes that I'm seeing, it's just the display of the hostages on videos with anti-American, anti-Israeli messages. Obviously, someone's arm is blown off. They're not getting proper medical care. They're in captivity, and they're broadcasting these videos. I didn't run them here.
Violation of the Geneva Convention, there.
No, I'm not going to rebroadcast that. It's highly, highly unlikely that what is being said was not coerced from the person. That was their own. They're really their own thoughts or views. That's right.
Got him at gunpoint.
So
read the script.
Yes. So no, I'm not going to I'm not going to assist them with the distribution of their propaganda.
Right. It was hard enough to play the Richard Medhurst video tonight, which was propaganda, and it was 100%. A straight up call to jihad in the United States.
Yes.
In the United States. And, that video came out. He released it last night around 9 or 10 o'clock. And within 2 hours, they took Hamilton Hall at Columbia University. They took it over by force, broke in. And they did the same thing at the University of Virginia at Richmond. 2 buildings. That's in addition to Humboldt, California, where they are also occupying a building on campus. They answered his call. He specifically told them in that video, go out, occupy the buildings, occupy the campuses. You heard him. They did. So his propaganda is very effective And it's important that you played that so that people could see it for themselves and hear it for themselves and understand what's really going on here. Because I was a fan of Richard's, you know. I thought Richard did really good reporting on the Assange case. He covered that. I followed his reporting for 3 years, but there's also more to the story with Richard Medhurst. You know, I can show you videos from 4 years ago, 5 years ago, when he wasn't political at all. He was like an aspiring rapper, which the videos are actually kind of funny. You ought to look him up and play him on the show sometime. He was like, you know, and he had a Chicago dialect, not a trace of a British accent at all. Right?
Isn't that? See, I didn't. Never even on my radar until the last couple of years. You see, and when I first started watching him, I thought, well, you know, I don't really agree with a lot of what he says, but I respect him. He seems to have some important things to say, and I can respect that. And so I did follow him a little bit.
Very intelligent.
What I've seen, but what I've seen is, well, disgusting.
That was beyond the pale. That video last night was just, he's been getting increasingly radical. And, you know, he's always been radical. And I'll give him this. He is from Syria. So he comes by it honestly. This is his culture. This is how he was raised. This is what he was taught. This is what he believes. So at least I'll give him that. He's sincere in what he believes.
Nevertheless, he's putting people at risk. His objective is clearly to destabilize, undermine, attack America. And he is the enemy. Right now, he is the enemy. And so if people need to understand that. The enemy is in the streets. The enemy is Richard Medhurst. The enemy is people who are spouting off with this exact same rhetoric.
And George Galloway.
The great Judge Galloway.
The great George Galloway.
He might hold elected office, but it doesn't mean he's not the enemy. You want to talk about government infiltration, you're looking at it right there.
Right. And there are many of them in our Congress, and there are more of them running for seats in Congress, including our old friend Jose Vega, who's currently running for that seat in the Bronx up against Richie Torres. And there's only one reason, Rick, that he's running. One. Gaza.
Palestine.
Yeah. He doesn't know anything else about politics or what's going on in the Bronx, or I don't think he has, I mean, I don't know what his plans are to help the people of the Bronx, but he's obsessed with Israel. He's got Israel derangement syndrome, and he's got to take on Richie Torres. And you know what? He could win that race because it's a heavily Muslim district with only about, I think, less than 2% Jews in that district. So
well, when he was on Strange Bedfellows and I was on there with you, you know, I was trying to be polite.
Sure.
It was difficult.
I know. Strange Bedfellows is a challenging show, isn't it? Because we're always having to try to find some common ground and civility with people with whom we disagree vehemently.
Yeah, and let me state very clearly, okay, I have nothing against Muslims. One of my best friends, like my next door neighbor, right? We great friends. But
well, listen,
he's not Hamas.
No. Islamism is a scourge upon the Muslim faith.
Yeah.
You know, and you can talk to a lot of great people from Iran who are your neighbors and ask them why they're here in Canada now. Ask them why they're in the United States. They'd be happy to tell you why they left after 1979 or were forced out.
Yep.
In fear of their lives.
Yep.
They'll tell you.
Yep.
Ask them.
Yep.
And Iranians are awesome.
Yeah. And as critical as I am at times of the United States, Canada, of NATO, the West, I'm still glad I live here. Because I can say Justin Trudeau is the worst prime minister in Canadian history, and I still got through the airport, and I didn't even get searched, right? It's like
that's right.
So I still have that, and I can say those kinds of things, but I know that in these other countries, you dare not.
Right. Yeah.
So,
well, it's like the video we just played of Alex Stein at UT at the Trans People for Palestine rally.
It's just
all he was
stupid.
saying was, "Look, dude, how do you think it's going to go for you if you visit Gaza?
How do they think it's going to go for them if these people are successful and they tear down society and take over the government? If they're the ones governing here, and we keep hearing people here in Canada, the radicalized people, say that we will soon be living under Sharia law. These are people who are telling us point blank that it's their goal to basically establish a dictatorship here. We're not going to... These people from the left who are supporting this, all you have to do is just believe them when they tell you that they want to establish an Islamo-fascist regime to take over and rework the system here. You're going to be living under authoritarianism.
They're very clear.
Yeah.
But, what was the banner that they unfurled outside of Hamilton Hall on Columbia's campus today? What did it say?
Oh, a liberate...
Intifada.
Oh, Intifada. Yeah.
Intifada. Yeah. That's what it said. So they're not hiding what
I
their
don't know
intentions are.
What is it with people today that even when it's like it's right in front of you, and it's like, nah, or they just don't understand. It's just blind. It's like they're telling you, we're taking over your country. Blah, whatever. Let's go to McDonald's. What is it? It's like it's right in front of you, and you're not seeing it.
Cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
Cognitive dissonance. Like, how much more obvious does it need to be? It's right in your face.
Right. So just, we have to deal with it. And I think we have still an opportunity to deal with this in a very even-handed, level-headed, low use of force way. But if we let it fester and masticize this cancer is going to spread to the point where it's going to get violent. You need to stamp it out now.
It already is.
Yes, I mean, like it's gone too far.
The thing is, are we just waiting for someone to get killed? Is that what it's going to take for President Biden to act? Is that what it's going to take for these school administrators to act, to comply with the federal law? Once again, the 1964 Civil Rights Act, specifically Title VI. This isn't rocket science. This is basic law. This is basic civil rights law 101. I studied it in school, and I guarantee you all these people are lawyers. They understand that it's the law of the land. They're choosing not to enforce it. President Biden is choosing to do nothing. He could federalize the National Guard today and should have done it weeks ago.
He is just more worried about votes in Michigan than he is about the the welfare of the country.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. And I put out a challenge today to my friend Bobby Kennedy. And I said, I challenge you to go to an occupied college campus and give a speech. It's about civil rights. Not about Israel, not about Palestine, not about Gaza. About civil rights. And uphold the legacy of your dad. When your dad visited the University of Alabama campus in April of 1963, he was met by mobs carrying signs that said, Kosher, Kennedy, Castro, Khrushchev. Let that sink in. They were anti-Semitic mobs of racists who were waiting for him when he came to the University of Alabama to talk to Governor George Wallace about integrating the campus in accordance with federal law, with the federal court's ruling. That's why he went. Governor Wallace wasn't having it. Neither were the majority of Alabamians. And so they encircled Robert Kennedy, just like you see on these college campuses today. You see how they encircle the Jewish kid, right? And they have their they intimidate physically, they get up in their face. That's what they did to his father, Robert Kennedy, when he went down there. and he was hit by a rock. They were throwing stuff at him. I mean, they hated him. And when he was running for president in 1968, he made a point to give a lot of speeches on college campuses in that tumultuous summer of 1968 with all the protests against the Vietnam War, and a lot of radical activity going on. A lot of those leftist college kids hated him. They did not like him. He went into very hostile audiences, hostile crowds, to try and talk to them. And the reason he did it, because a lot of people were saying, Bobby, don't do it. That's dangerous. You might get hurt. He said, you know, the answer to offensive speech is more speech. Free speech means not just free speech for you. There's my big finger. It means free speech for me, too. And, you know, the average Jewish kid can get shouted down and silenced pretty easily when there's a mob that loud with loudspeakers on campus, right? Mm-hmm. They can't speak. But it's a lot harder to silence a presidential candidate. And a guy named Kennedy, because the Kennedy legacy is civil rights. So I think he needs to pick up the mantle of his dad and his uncle and do the right thing and get out there and speak. And when I brought that up today, many of our campaign volunteers and staffers jumped down my throat for it.
Of course.
They're the Democrats, though, by the way.
Right,
These are not the Republicans on our campaign or the Libertarians, by the way. It was the Democrats, the ones who voted for Joe Biden and Barack Obama and now regret it. Yeah. They're the ones who are saying, no. Let's both sides this. That's the good strategy to win. You know, we need to placate those bigots, basically. Don't say anything. Don't say anything. And Bobby hasn't. He hasn't said a word about the disorder and the lawlessness that's going on right now in our country, and the discrimination on our college campuses, which is a slap in the face to the Kennedys after all they did to integrate college campuses. So I got jumped on for that, but I'm not backing down. I still think it's the right thing to do, and I hope that Bobby doesn't listen to some of these advisors on his campaign who are telling him to shut up. You know, a lot, like I said, the Democratic Party leaders in 1963 told his uncle to shut up about civil rights because we might lose that Southern bigot vote. We wouldn't want to do that, now would we?
So you're in the meeting. He was in the meeting at the same time?
No, he wasn't present.
No, he wasn't present at the meeting.
No. But trust me, there are people behind the scenes bending his ear about it on both sides.
Yeah.
And, you know, some people say he should speak, and then others with more influence and maybe bigger pockets, that's all I'm going to say about that, are telling him not to speak, to just be quiet.
I don't know. In his position, he needs to do bold things to get elected. And doing those bold things, I would think, should involve doing the right things. So he's got everything to gain at this point by doing the right thing. And he's he's already taken it on the chin over Israel, Palestine. I don't know why. Well, I guess maybe I do. Wait, all the progressive liberals, the Democrats that you know within his circle, they came out swinging and bashing him as soon as he said he was supportive of Israel after October 7th. And they hammered him so hard, they hit him harder than they hit the guys running against him. They didn't attack Trump. They didn't attack Biden. They jumped all over their own guy, RFK Jr. Bizarre. with
It is.
with campaign supporters and workers like that, you don't need enemies. And a lot of those guys, I think, have abandoned him anyway to go and do. I don't know who they're supporting now. If anybody, who Cornell West or.
It is
what?
strange, some of them are still hanging around the campaign. And I've asked them, I'm like, so if you're so vehemently opposed to his Middle East policy, why are you still here? Why aren't you defecting to Cornell West or Jill Stein?
Mm-hmm.
And they say, well, I'm willing to overlook that because he's so good on all the other things I care about. But I think a lot of them still have some vain hope that he's going to change and come to their point of view and turn like full Hamas. And I'm trying to tell them, look, that's very unlikely. It's very unlikely. But they're still holding out hope that he might go make a speech on a college campus in solidarity with the pro-Hamas protesters. And I'm like, I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but nope. Not going to happen.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Because, again, it's a civil rights issue. It's not about Israel. It's not about Palestine. It's about equal access for every American. It's about equality for all.
Indeed. Yes.
That's it. It's that simple. It's not about the Jews. It's about you and me and everybody having equal rights.
Yeah, and why would you be fighting this battle here anyway, like this? Really, I mean, it's. I get that America's involved, but for this to be going on like we're seeing it right now, no, these are not just protests, and it doesn't serve the students well. These people are all useful idiots.
And a lot of these folks, you got the young people, but then you've got the boomers. A lot of boomers are on this Free Palestine train, and a lot of them are their professors. The professors who are teaching them are the boomers who were there in 1968 when these students took Hamilton Hall at Columbia. By the way, it was on the same date, April 30th, 1968.
Is that right?
Yeah. And that's why those protesters at Columbia last night waited until the stroke of midnight to bust into Hamilton Hall and take the building by force, because they wanted to do it on the anniversary of the time they took Hamilton Hall in 68. Then it makes sense, huh?
Yeah.
Did you show the video of them busting their way into Hamilton Hall? It's pretty shocking.
I showed the clash between the NYPD and the protesters.
There's some amazing video of after midnight when they took the building. You had these guys with hammers busting the windows out.
Yeah.
It looked like January 6th, only worse.
Yes.
And yet the FBI doesn't seem to give a damn about that.
Isn't that odd, eh?
Yeah, isn't it, though? And Columbia just let it happen. They still haven't called in the NYPD. People are wondering, why aren't the cops there? I've heard people ask, why isn't NYPD going on the campus and taking care of business? But they can't unless they're invited by the university, because it's technically private property. So there are a lot of calls on the university president and the board of trustees to do something, invite the NYPD in. They're literally parked right outside the gates of Columbia, waiting to come in.
This was posted 8 minutes ago. Is this new footage? Looks like
no. Well,
police
what
going
do you got
in.
There? That's tonight, I guess.
Yeah.
They're still occupying.
Police going in.
Oh, did they finally call the cops? Interesting. I see. Well, I think that maybe they did go ahead and let those cops in, because if the president of Colombia was watching Speaker Mike Johnson's press conference earlier today, he and other members of Congress made it very clear that if you don't restore law and order and equality on these campuses, you about to lose your federal funding. And we're not just whistling Dixie about that. So I think maybe that message might have reached those in power at Columbia.
And there's this as well, this Fox News interview that was done that I thought was very telling, because it's just the typical play that, you just deny anything wrong that you do, just pretend like it.
How do you feel about them taking over the building right now?
I think that their cause is a just cause, and I hope that the administration really hears their demands. I think they're just demands.
Do you feel like it was right to hold 3 of the janitor workers hostage inside of the building?
I think that's a really false narrative.
That's what the janitors are saying, that they weren't allowed to leave.
I think that that's a really false narrative.
Even if the janitors are saying that, you're saying that that's not true.
I think
She's
that
lying.
it's a really false narrative that the students took anyone hostage.
How do you feel about some of the Jewish students saying that they don't feel safe here on campus?
I think that this is also a really false narrative that's being promoted.
Do you think October 7th and the attack that happened is a false narrative? Do you believe that some of the women were raped?
Colleague just came back.
So this is what happened.
Can you get out of my face, please?
So this is what you see at these protests. Once you get into the nitty-gritty of what happened on October the 7th, the rape of women, what's happening there, they deny what happened. As you know, that is actually factual now, that the janitorial workers were blocked inside of the building. And anytime you bring that up, the Jewish cause, the Jewish people, the kids that feel unsafe on campus, they deny the reality of it, guys.
Good reporter. Asked those questions, and he was, just
very good.
Yeah, very steady with it.
And she's like, "Oh, gotta go. Don't have time to talk to you now. Gotta run." So yes, I just double checked, and yes, Columbia did give NYPD permission to enter the campus and clear that building. I'm going to bring you some live coverage of that right now from CBS 2 New York. This is live in progress.
In place, so there are officers at the front of each building ensuring that these students are not coming out. I'm not sure if you guys can hear it, but there are people chanting from their windows and from the front of the buildings, "Shame on you," to the officers. But again, right now on 114th, I must say it is pretty calm. They are bringing people out into the buses now. At least 5 buses have been parked on 114th as they start bringing the people out. And the NYPD has been carrying the press just one step at a time, closer and closer to where we are right now. And I think this is the closest that we'll get, where they're actually bringing protesters out in handcuffs and bringing them over to the buses. Maurice?
Alicia, it looks like the strategy, a smart one in any operations such as this, is to overwhelm with numbers, with force. And when you said there were packs of officers moving in a group in different directions to go after people on the campus to take them out in cuffs, what kind of numbers would you say that looked like? Like how many officers at a time, and how many people did they seem to take out, best you could tell?
Yeah, absolutely. Hundreds of officers. I want to say the first pack was at least maybe 200, and then they had a second pack and a third pack. But by the 4th, there weren't as many. We're hearing protesters on the other side. I think that's Amsterdam. They're getting louder and louder. But right now, they actually slowed down in taking people from inside. The first bus is leaving right now. We can see that first NYPD police van leaving with people inside. Some of them were shouting, trying to shout through the windows, "Free Palestine." But as of right now, I would say they have things under control here, but there are lots of officers still manning the streets and making sure that the students who are inside are sheltering in place. Maurice?
Yeah, a lot of numbers when you look at officers right there, Alicia. One more thing, I don't think you're going to be able to fully answer this, but this is important. The mayor and the police commissioner talked about outside agitators, professional protesters, who they really see as the issue, the main problem here. And I'm guessing that you couldn't tell who was arrested. Were they, outside-looking people or student types or some of both? Or you couldn't, it's night, it's a lot of officers. What'd you see?
Yeah, we couldn't really see faces, and they were rushing us past the buses as they were trying to get us from one location to the next. I can say, looking at the bus right now that just left, it's now it's on 114th in Amsterdam, and there's a crowd of protesters. Officers are now running in that direction, I guess, to try and calm the situation. But it is getting louder a little bit further away from us. But they do have us in pen, so we're just kind of stuck in one place and trying to observe as things happen, but we can't tell what is happening, but it's getting really loud.
Yeah, I didn't think so, Alicia, but it'll be really interesting to see how this shakes out when they give us the totals of the people who they've arrested, who were students, who they advised to get out of here, and they told parents to get their kids off of campus ASAP. Maybe some of them were arrested tonight. We're guessing there were. But did they get these outside agitators and professional protesters as they describe them? That also remains to be seen. Alicia, nice work. We'll come back to you and Ali in just a little bit. But right now we're going to go to Richard Esposito, who can give us some analysis and kind of break down what we're looking at here. Richard, I hope you're able to see the same pictures we are. What do you make of what you've seen so far? Police moving in with what seems to be overwhelming force.
I think Maurice, what you've seen, first, the officers entering the building on an upper floor. You'll notice that they're a unit all clad in tan pants. You don't see riot gear, just helmets. You don't see nightsticks. What you see is an overwhelming number of officers. You've already, reporters have noted the drone coverage overhead, and you can be sure they have a good schematic of inside the building, and they have good video, so they know who they want to arrest, and they know who they prefer not to arrest if possible. This is not like, I don't know if you recall the Republican convention in New York, where I think 1,200 or more, 1,800 people were arrested protesting. That's not going to happen here. The police are doing this in a very judicious way. They're trying to avoid images that would encourage and amplify other protests. And the way to do that is use overwhelming force in terms of numbers, but not overwhelming force in terms of zip ties, in terms of any of the tools you might see in other cities, like in Tampa, where police are responding with, looks like tear gas and zip ties. You're not seeing any of that, and you're seeing not that many people being taken off campus. Now, the question is, outside agitators is always a tricky phrase. Certainly, it means non-students. Certainly, they've identified who they say are professional agitators. And in the past, there have certainly been people connected to, on the campus, not today, but in the past week, people on the campus who are connected to known alleged terrorists, according to intelligence officers.
Richard, I'm wondering what you make of that vehicle right there. We're getting some reporting from our team here. The ESU, Emergency Services Unit vehicle, is called the Lenco Bear, a ballistic engineered armored rescue vehicle with Mars, a mobile adjustable ramp system. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but we saw this vehicle. It's right there in the middle of your screen, right up against Hamilton Hall, where the officers entered that second floor window. We saw that vehicle come in and really, show a show of force and give the officers sort of an impervious vehicle to operate from, and then go about their business. Have you seen that before?
I have seen it before in New York, in Los Angeles. It's a very effective tool. You see that it could pull right up to the building, no limited risk. It's a heavy vehicle. You see that it has the ability to raise a ladder. It has other tools that if you that can be used with it as well. In this case, they're not using it in a forceful way. They're using it as a deployment tool. And forgive me for not having the technical terms in front of it, of what the vehicle's capabilities are.
But it is a very impressive vehicle, and it's almost like a tank, right? It was a real show of force.
Like a tank.
Yeah, as those officers moved in. What do you make of the way they're going about this? I think it was great for you to point out that they were wearing helmets, not riot gear, as some of us may mistakenly think, but helmets only. That's to protect themselves and to be
right.
careful with students, right? Young people.
That's correct. They are going in a way where they have a huge number, but you can see that they're going in with protective gear on, not riot gear. You don't see those big shields. You don't see batons. You don't see full face coverings. You see that on some of the officers standing by outside in case they need to do that. But right now, they're going in sheer numbers is the best tool in this kind of action. And that's what the police are using. They're using numbers. And I think you'll find the number arrested will not be that large. Remember, it's actually not a huge number of protesters in that building to begin with.
And what do you make of these protesters? We're talking about these so-called outside agitators, professional protesters, as the mayor and the police commissioner called them. You've seen them in other situations, such as what? Where have you seen them?
So let me call them a violent fringe for the moment, without who's outsiders, who's not. But you've seen them in the George Floyd protests. You've seen them at Occupy Wall Street. You've seen them at any number of events. And sometimes they almost appear to be hijacking someone else's cause, wrapping themselves in a cause that isn't quite theirs, because their cause is disruption. In a sense, some of them are anarchists.
Yeah, what about that? I mean, what's the motivation? Just to raise hell, basically?
Yes, to raise hell in the sense of causing disorder, showing authorities being heavy-handed, but it doesn't help the protest. If you're someone who's there for pro-Palestinian reasons, you're making your point with banners, with flags, with voices, all things that the university may not like, but they'll tolerate. If you're there encouraging people to light flares in the faces of cops, block traffic, break windows, that's a different thing altogether. And while the students, if you recall, had compared this to the Vietnam-era takeover of that building, in 1968, there were millions of Americans against the war, millions. That is not a correct parallel with what you're seeing now. And that's an important distinction when people try and say, look, this violence comes in a pattern. You didn't see that time either. One of my friends represented 1,200 of the arrestees at that time.
Yeah, and what we saw with the takeover of Hamilton Hall last night was people with hammers and a sophisticated pulley system, you know, to get supplies up and down from the ground up to the building. They came in and trashed the place. They, you know, destroyed windows and doors as they broke into the building. The work, the NYPD said, of these outside agitators.
Yes, and the police commissioner has just let me know that things should be calming down up at Columbia now.
It appears to be that way. As we look at the scene right now, this is video from earlier, but if we're able to go back to the live pictures, we can see this, I believe. Guys, tell me which street this is. I can't tell. Is that Amsterdam or Broadway? I think it's Amsterdam. But what that is officers kind of standing but not moving. There's no movement here. What does that tell you, Richard?
It tells me what I'm seeing in a direct quote from someone in the police commissioner's office, which is all is good now at Columbia. And that they were able to get the people out smoothly, they say, and they did not have to get too many people out. I think that would indicate that tactically they've done a good job.
This is a contact of yours at the NYPD?
This is yes. Senior police official.
High-ranking official. So saying that all is good at Columbia, that doesn't mean it's an all clear, but they feel like they have things under control. Is that what they're saying?
That's correct. And they feel like they've gotten out the key people that they needed to get out.
And that would be a pretty quick operation. I mean, this is less than an hour since they moved in there and retook Hamilton Hall and reestablished order, as you put it, on campus.
Yeah, you know, it's like with tailors, measure twice, cut once, right? The operation is all in the planning.
Yes. Okay. Looks like the plan has been executed and pulled off rather well. Richard, thank you so much. I think we're going to move on now to CBS 2's Naveen Dhaliwal. Naveen, where are you and what's your vantage point right now? What do you see?
Yeah, Maurice, I'm at West 113th and Broadway, and there have been a group of protesters here for several hours now. You can see them there chanting. They've been holding their signs. There have been barricades here been placed, and there is no vehicle traffic for, I'd say, about 3 blocks into this area, but there is foot traffic, as you can see. Now, as the NYPD vehicles move into the zone past West 113th, these demonstrators really, surround these vehicles and are trying to get past the barricades. It just happened in the last 2-3 minutes. But police are ready. They have their gear. They have those helmets on, the batons ready, and they are well aware of what's happening just a few blocks away here at Columbia as those arrests, as the NYPD converges on to Hamilton Hall. You can see them. They have been ready. The barricades have been in place, but so far, no major issues at this corner. There seems to be order for the most part. At one point, the protesters sat on the ground up against the barricades, chanting, taunting the officers. But it seems like so far this corner is order for the most part. But we are keeping a close eye, Maurice, and we will bring you the very latest from here. Back to you.
Okay, good work there, Naveen Dhaliwal. Thank you so much. At 113 and Broadway. This image here, I believe this is 114 and Broadway. What you can see in both of these pictures is that there appears to be police in a state of calm. There is no agitation going on. It appears they've gone in and accomplished their mission. They've come into the zone and flooded it with a lot of officers with a large vehicle, and they seem to have retaken Hamilton Hall. There have been arrests made, and at the moment, it appears we can say that things are under control at Columbia. But we're going to continue to watch it. We'll have more for you right here on CBS News New York, streaming, and on CBS 2 News at 11 o'clock. I'm Maurice Dubois. We will see you as we continue tonight.
So, it doesn't look that under control to me. Does it to you, Rick? I see that they have cleared Hamilton Hall, but that street is full of protesters and they're not moving. And I don't think that NYPD has been told to make them move, and they're just going to leave. This was all performative theater, in my opinion, to satisfy the masses out there who are saying, do something. So they said, oh, you want a show? We'll give you a show. We'll go in the building, we'll go through the window, bring out the SWAT team. But they're going to leave, and the protesters will stay.
Well, they've got a problem because
they got a lot of problems.
They've got so many people, right?
Yep.
And for police, the paramount concern is always public safety for everyone, including the protesters. So I'm sure that they're looking at the situation and they don't want to do anything that would set
agitate
people
the
off.
Agitators?
Yes, that's right. To a point where you get,
agitate the agitators,
where people might get hurt. So
right.
They're trying to find a way to
peacefully
have them
order.
yeah, that's right, and have them disperse, but in a way that it doesn't lead to any people getting hurt.
And what do you do when they refuse to disperse? Like what happened at UT yesterday.
Yep.
And other campuses. Where,
this is why I'm glad I'm not a
came
cop.
in and picked them up, carried them out.
I'm glad I'm not a cop because it's always a difficult thing, right?
Oh, yeah. God,
and eventually it comes to that. It does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because these kids are just going to dig in. The more you tell them to leave, they're going to be like, nah, 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 because they're spoiled brats. You raised children. You know what I'm talking about. When your kid's throwing a temper tantrum, a little 5-year-old, you're like, go to bed. And the kid's like, no, I won't go to bed. Mm-hmm. You're like, you're going to bed. I'm the parent, you're the child, and you're going to bed, and I'm going to pick you up and take you to your bedroom. I mean, literally. Yeah. It all comes down to establishing who's the boss. And when you're throwing a temper tantrum, kid, it's not you.
Well, there are rules. And those rules are not there to restrict people's rights. They're actually there to protect people's rights. That's why you need police, too, because the police are there representing the people, in fact, is what they're doing when they're doing their job properly. Sometimes they don't always get it right, but that's what police are supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
So
well, that's
I don't
why
know.
We have laws. That's why we're a nation of laws. That's right, why we have the 1964 Civil Rights Act. Mm-hmm. And like Bobby Kennedy Sr. said when he went to the University of Alabama in 1963, he said, it's not about why they're protesting. It's because we're a nation of laws. This is about law and order and enforcing the law in the United States. It's the law of the land.
Mm-hmm. And what we're witnessing in the streets is not really, again, in my view, a protest anymore. It is...
if it ever really was.
Yes, it in this case it was not. This is an attack on America.
Right. That's what I wish people would wake up and understand. Mm-hmm. This is someone, I don't know who, is ultimately behind this, but somebody's trying to destabilize our country and start a civil war. And it's really been going on for years.
Yep.
I don't know who to point the finger of blame at, if it's internal or external.
It's both,
or
but
both.
What I've been trying to tell people is the internal threat is not the system. It isn't the United States attacking itself. It's people who are corrupted, people who have been bought off. It's people
or ideologically driven.
Right, ideologically driven and manage to get into government or into bureaucratic positions where they can then work from within to tear everything down. And that's why it looks like the United States attacks itself, when in reality it's bad actors, people under foreign influence who are in there tearing it down from the inside. So it looks like it's the government, but it's traitors within the government doing it to us. It's not the United States. These are enemies of the state working from within.
That's enemy within. That's the name
within.
Of a book that was written by Robert Kennedy when he was before he was Attorney General. The Enemy Within.
So that's what is going on. And it doesn't take a lot of like rocket science to figure out where the foreign influence comes in, and it's coming from various sides, I would say. And all you have to do is just go watch that video with Yuri Bezmenov. He talks about it. You know how during the Soviet era, the KGB would just, and this is the same thing they do today. They identify groups that are disruptive, that want to tear down the United States, and those groups may not even realize where their donations come from or their support, but they kind of find these little snowballs and start rolling them down the hill, and they help them along in order to cause more and more disruption within the country that they target. And that's what we see in the streets and on campus now. Big snowballs.
Who was funding the PLO back in the 60s and 70s and 80s? Remember? It was the Soviets.
Oh, well, of course, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And all of those Palestinian liberation groups from that era were Soviet funded. Now we know because we have the documents to prove it.
Of course, and I mean, who benefits from this? I mean, we're at war. We are literally at war right now. So This shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone. And I would like better relations with all these countries. I would like better relations with Russia and better relations with China and all of them. India.
Right, because the Cold War is turning hot with Russia real quick over there in Ukraine.
And I wish
Even if it's
we could
a proxy
have better,
war, it's still a hot war.
But we're at war. And
yes,
this is one of the front lines. And Richard Medhurst is a mouthpiece for Russia and Iran. He is. He's paid. He works
so
for
Galloway.
RT. That's right.
So
All these guys are. I mean,
and our good friend Scott Ritter.
100%. And as much
Love
as I,
Scott.
as much as I like Scott, I mean, I haven't had him back on the program. I haven't even contacted him or asked him because I can see that he is so wrong. He's just so wrong.
Bought and paid for, man.
100%. Because he has to be. They're paying him to be. Right?
Dude's got to make a living, you know.
It's like whatever. Like it doesn't matter what it is. Russia always wins. The other side always. I can write the script for him.
Oh, wait for it. It'll be over next week. They're going to crush Ukraine. It'll be over next week.
I've been hearing that for 2 years.
Right.
So after a while, honestly,
wrong
a lot
again,
of his
Scotty.
a lot of his analysis is on point because he'll give you the current lay of the land, I think, and the football chart, like the troops are here and here and here and here, but then it turns into, but by Tuesday, all the Ukrainian troops will be dead and we'll be marching into Kyiv. So it's like, and then it doesn't happen.
Still
and then
waiting
again and again for 2 years. So after, like, what's the point in talking to him?
Well, it's the same thing with Colonel McGregor.
Exactly.
Who's also quite disappointing here lately.
Oh my! It's the same thing. It's just it's disappointing, but
it is.
That again, folks. That's the truth. And I haven't wanted to come out and say anything negative about any of these guys because I have had respect for them.
Sure,
but
they're my friends.
It's just,
and I'm trying to maintain those friendships, but
but it's just
not easy
it's so
right
blatantly obvious that it's just not what they're saying isn't true. So
Scotty's gone full Hamas, like Halo says here. He lost it. He lost the plot. Yeah. Shortly after October 7th, Scott was literally posting on Twitter, "I am pro-Hamas." I mean, he makes no bones about it. At least he's honest. I'll give him that. He believes what he believes, and
But that shows you as well that Russia is also backing Hamas. They are backing that side. They are, and that's because they are so closely allied now with Iran. They're working so closely together that that's where the alliances are drawn. You have those countries over there, and you have the West over here. Israel's with the United States, and that's just the way it is. And so all these online influencers, it's their job to carry that narrative forward, and they're very effective with it. But I have backed away.
Them, I think some of them are well-meaning. Mm-hmm. They have good hearts. They've seen the horrible images coming out of Gaza. How could anyone who's a parent or anyone with a heart look at these videos of injured children and not feel anger and pain looking at those images? And that's exactly the way those images are produced, to provoke that reaction in you. And we have now analyzed a lot of those images and find that many of them are from old conflicts. It's old footage. Some of it's AI. Some of these photographs are just outright fake.
Yep.
And let me tell you, folks, the Hamas machine has a very skilled propaganda arm. Very well funded, very well organized. They've got some pretty good producers on their team. Rick, I know you've done video production for more than 35 years, and you know all the tricks. You know how propaganda can be done, and they're very good at it.
Very.
So they're working your emotions, and so that's why you see these college kids out here. I'm not saying they're all Nazis or fascists or bad people. A lot of them truly think they're helping the children of Gaza. They think they're stopping a genocide. That's the propaganda that they heard on their favorite podcast. That's what they heard from Jimmy Dore, from Max Blumenthal, from Scott Ritter, from all these, George Galloway, all these people that they admire, Richard Medhurst. And they think, well, if they said it, it must be true. And I saw the video on TikTok. Look at these kids. I mean, this is horrible. We have to do something to stop it. But they don't understand.
The children.
Yeah. It's
Of
always
course, what's
for the
worse
children.
than dead babies? I mean, that's
Nothing.
why they talk about it, and that's what I've been saying. They've martyred those babies,
right?
And they've sacrificed them. Hamas sacrificed them.
Yes, and yet no one seems to blame Hamas, which is where the blame truly lies. And I'm running a Twitter poll right now. Actually, I asked my audience today, or the Twitterverse, not just my audience. Anybody can vote in that poll. But I asked, who is the real oppressor of the Palestinian people? And the options were Hamas, the Palestinian Authority, or Israel. You know what's scary? It's about half and half right now between Hamas and Israel. So at least half of the people, and it's several hundred votes so far, believe that Israel, that's how powerful that propaganda is. Very persuasive. You know,
It
they
really
truly
is.
believe that Israel's responsible.
Yeah, and you know, with Ritter, with McGregor, with all of these guys. I mean, yeah, we know them, and I've been watching them. I've been buying a lot of what they've been saying at certain points. Not everything, but a lot of what they say. I'm like, yeah, okay, you're the expert, if you will, in this area. So I cede to you a lot of this stuff. But no, it's just so blatantly obvious now that so many of these guys have just gone full anti-America. Guys like Medhurst.
It's hard to blame Scott
you know.
because the United States was not kind to Scott Ritter.
Yeah.
But, you know, he's got his reasons, I suppose. Oh, my Lord, will you look at this? I just checked my poll. It's worse than I thought, Rick. I got about 300 votes so far. And right now, 50% believe that Israel is the oppressor of the Palestinian people. That's more than Hamas. There's 41% say Hamas. About 4% say the Palestinian Authority. Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. So if you would like to vote in that poll, please go to my Twitter. It's @RealLoriSpencer, and please do cast a vote. Maybe we can change the outlook and the outcome of that poll. So yeah, I'm proud of you, Rick. I'm very proud of you because I know that throughout this conflict for the last 6 months, you've been trying to maintain your objectivity as a journalist, to report on both sides, to be fair. So have I. But it's come to the point now, especially since these protests have ramped up in North America, and we're seeing the blatant anti-Semitism, and it's becoming increasingly violent because no one's checked it. And if you negotiate with terrorists, you get more terrorism. Okay, that's how it works.
That's right.
So, you know, there does come a point. I messaged you about it earlier today. I said, at what point do we stop both sidesing this thing and find some moral clarity? And just at what point do we say this is wrong?
Well, you know, my approach to this really has not changed tonight. It may appear that way simply because my language is maybe more forceful, but I've always been against Hamas. I've always been against terrorism. I've always said the things that I've been saying with regard to, the people being used as human shields and the children being used as martyrs. I've made, consistent references to martyrdom as being the motivating factor behind the October 7th attack. I haven't changed any of that.
That's right, because I was on the air with you on October 7th, and I remember you were very clear. This is wrong. This is terrorism.
And it's not just about both sidesing something when you're a journalist, though. Being a journalist means, yes, you get to look at all sides of an issue and give people an opportunity to express their points of view or even their ideology, which you may not agree with, so people can have a greater understanding. But being a true journalist also means that after doing all of that, if something is wrong, blatantly wrong, or not serving the public interest, or illegal, or whatever, right? If it's in the public interest to call out something because something's on the wrong side of history, or it's cruel, or genocidal, if it is truly, then you call these things out because that's in the public interest. It isn't just about this guy says that and this guy says that. If it's a story about organized crime and somebody's hurting people as an organized criminal, you don't just say, well, the organized criminal, the mafia guy says this, and just leave it at that. No, the guy committed a crime and took the little old lady's money, right? So you call that out because that's wrong. That's part of what journalism is too. We're here to serve the public. We're the eyes and the ears of the public as a journalist. You understand? It's not just, folks, this guy says that and this guy says that. Yes, we provide the platform, but at the end of the day, it also comes down to what's right, what's wrong, and if a politician is doing something wrong, you hold them accountable. That's our job as well. That's why I can sit here, though, in our society, in Canada, in the United States, where we have still at least some free speech, I can sit here and be very critical of the Prime Minister or Pierre Poilievre or any other politician, and I don't get thrown into the gulag. But you go to a lot of other countries, including, frankly, Russia, where they threw another journalist in jail just this past week, and, you try that there, good luck. You're not going to survive very long. As a journalist or as a human, you might just end up a whole lot worse.
Look what just happened to Russell Texas Bentley.
Well, precisely.
He was a journalist.
Yeah.
He was no longer in combat. Hadn't been in combat in years. He was working for Sputnik as a journalist. And I think his last moments when he went to see what was going on with the shelling there in Donetsk, he was going to film it, to report on it. So he died in the service of doing journalism.
Indeed. And even though Kevin was on here the other night and we got his account of things, the truth of the matter is we really don't know exactly what happened. It does appear, though, based on even the information coming from the Russian government, that it was Russian soldiers who did this to him. Now,
5th Brigade.
Now, you can't say anything critical about the Russian military over there, or you're going to end up
well, he can't,
in trouble.
But we can.
Kevin can, right?
Yeah, Kevin sure as hell can.
So the story that we got from Kevin was that these Russian soldiers are, werewolves?
Werewolves,
which are
supposedly pro-Ukrainian, but serving in the Russian armed forces.
Right. Maybe. Seems a little far-fetched, but
it does.
It seems to me that based on all and I've been waiting, honestly, and I don't mean to discredit Kevin because I love Kevin. I really do, and I think he does an awesome job within the bounds that he's forced to work within. Right.
And he only knows what he's being told by his government over there.
That's right. But as I sit here and I look at all the information, all right, I can't say what happened. So I can't sit here, criticize him or say that he's wrong, but I haven't seen any other media reports at all or any government documents or any other information at all coming out of Russia that supports the werewolves narrative. So I kind of I'm like, I don't know. I've been waiting. I'm kind of glad you brought. Right, waiting for confirmation, additional information before even commenting on it further. I've tried to stay away from that story, honestly, because it's so volatile, and without being able to get real facts, I'm kind of like, I don't really want to talk about it because I don't really know what the hell's going on. So
and we are left with speculation, which we hate to do.
Right.
Especially, I hate to do it because it's the death of a friend.
Yeah,
Russell was a friend.
So,
it's a difficult story for me to report on.
Yeah, so I just don't like speculating, and I don't know. So that's the truth, is I don't know. And there's no real way for me right now to know. And all we can do is we can't. So
we can't. We have to rely on the Russian government to investigate themselves.
And the telltale thing about that is that the Russian government has said very little about it. Kudos to Kevin, because he did indicate that he went to government sources, not just for journalistic reasons, but also to help Russell's wife, right, to get information and have closure. Yeah. So great for that. But without that, I don't know that we would even have had as much information that has come forward. But the other media outlets that I've seen where they've been given some of the same information, they're reporting it as saying that it isn't really clear what the motive was behind these Russian soldiers killing Russell Texas Bentley, who formerly fought with the separatists in Donetsk on behalf of the Russian side. The Russian-supported separatists up there, and then later became an employee of Sputnik. And I would call him not so much a journalist, but a propagandist.
Sure.
And
that's
what his job was. So fair enough, right? But something happened.
He served Russia well as a propagandist. Let's be honest. He was there to make the special military operation look good, to make Russia look good. And that is indeed propaganda, not journalism. He was biased in his reporting, clearly, because he had an ideological drive. That's what drove him to leave his home country, the United States, to leave his beloved Texas and go fight a war for another country, in another country, wearing another country's uniform. Pretty rare. And he was the first, he blazed that trail back in 2014.
But actually, Russia has actually been using, if you look into it, they have thousands of soldiers from other countries fighting on their side. Ukraine also has soldiers from other countries who have come in to fight from around the world as well. So the odd thing, and this happens in all wars to some degree, but you literally have Americans fighting Americans, the French fighting the French.
On both sides.
Yes, on each side. So it's...
And Russell, what set him apart from your standard mercenary? Most mercenaries just kill for money. They're not there for ideological reasons. They're not necessarily in love with Ukraine or Russia. The difference with Russell Bentley was that he was a true believer. And he might have been misguided. You might not agree with his politics. He was a communist. He went over there to fight the Ukrainians, whom he called Nazis and fascists, and truly believed he was fighting fascism. And he was there for honest-to-God reasons. He really believed in it, even if he was wrong. Ultimately, and he'll have to sort that out with his maker. But he was not a mercenary in that sense of the word. And he wasn't there for money. He was a volunteer originally. He volunteered to fight.
Yeah, and so you're getting some pretty naked truth here tonight, folks.
Yeah,
you really, truly are.
Great conversation. Always is with you. Always is.
Yeah, and... it is getting late. We should probably wrap this up. And I know that I promised you actually more naked truth tonight because I have this interview with Carl Larson, with the Ukraine Defense Support, co-founder. And I was going to run that tonight to provide real balance on all of this stuff that we're talking about right here, as a matter of fact. But we're going to save that for tomorrow now.
Yeah,
because
if you
it
have
is so
time,
late.
you can run it. I'll stay.
Yeah, no, we'll let it slide because it's been 3.5 hours now.
Yeah,
and,
long show.
Yeah, and I've got to... I have so much other stuff to do anyway, but I got to get rest. I have to get ready for tomorrow, and it will hold until tomorrow.
It'll keep.
It will. That being said, I did notice today there was comment from NATO. In fact, let me run that because maybe I'll get your comment on this. Sure.
I've been dealing so much with the college campus stuff here in the States. I didn't even see this from NATO. So, yeah, I'd like to see it.
Yeah, so this is... And I just found out about this before coming on tonight. NATO chief confirms Ukraine will become a member of NATO. Wow. I don't know that we have an exact timeline yet, but let me just bring this up.
Wow, that's historic. How did I miss that?
So I need to listen to this carefully to see what this means in terms of timing.
Huh.
Ukraine's rightful place is in NATO. Ukraine will become a member of NATO. The work we are undertaking now puts you on an irreversible path towards NATO membership. So that when the time is right, Ukraine can become a NATO member straight away.
When the time is right, so...
pretty non-committal there. I've heard him say that before, or words to that effect, you know. It's the carrot that they've been dangling in front of Ukraine now for years is, you know, when the time is right, we'd love to have you in NATO, but we're not going to be very committal about it, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, they can't do it right now, or we'll be into a direct
World War
conflict.
III. Oh, hi, kitty. Hello. This is my boy, Jack. Hey, Jack. Came to say hello.
Yeah.
Actually, he's telling me, Mom, you've been sitting here too long and you need to come pay attention to me.
So, yeah, folks, make sure you come back tomorrow. I promised you that at the beginning of the broadcast, but we'll hold it for tomorrow. And we'll have Carl Larson on with a broader context, a broader point of view on this that I think will help us all understand everything just a little bit better. And I'm eager to share that with you.
Curious to see that. Curious to see that. But that's what good journalism is, right? Some of your viewers aren't going to like it because they just don't like Ukraine. They're on the Russian side. But again, that's what journalism is all about, is to bring you all of the viewpoints, let you make up your own mind.
And a lot of people not liking what I said tonight, so...
Yeah.
I'm sure. So what else is new?
I probably lost about 100 followers just in the last 24 hours.
Yeah.
I've been used to that since October the 7th.
Yeah.
You know, my point of view is not the popular one right now. But I'd like to remind people that throughout history, usually the idea that the mob has is not the correct one. Segregation, COVID lockdowns, masking, vaccine mandates. I could go on and on and on. And Nazi Germany. That too. It was very popular.
At the time,
Very
it was,
popular.
yes.
Fascism
Look at the
was
size of the crowds.
very popular. If you opposed it back in the day, you were in a small minority, at least in this continent. So that's okay. I'm used to having an unpopular opinion. You know, I'm a journalist, but I don't mind expressing an opinion. People aren't going to like it, so what?
And you know, one of the motivating factors in bringing people like Scott Ritter and Colonel McGregor on is that you bring those guys on, I could bring them on here. They're worth like 50, 60,000 views like that. So if you're trying to build a channel, just bring those guys on. I know that, but I haven't done it because my integrity is everything. I'm not going to sacrifice my integrity for 50,000 views for one night.
Preach.
Because I know that a year from now, 2 years from now, and when I'm in my grave, I've got to live with whatever I do. Not that I don't like those guys, but I don't, I see that right now there is, well, extreme bias, shall we say. So what's the value in it? It's not valuable to our viewers because it's propaganda.
Well, and they've got a huge audience on their own channels, right?
That's right. They don't
on
need
other
me.
channels. They've got a big audience listening to what they have to say. But, usually those who are on the right side of history start out as a minority.
Yeah.
And it changes, I mean, today, Martin Luther King is a national hero in the United States. We have a holiday named after him. We have streets named after him. We have memorials all over the place to Dr. King, and he's looked upon as a hero now. But that was not the case in his time, Rick, as you well know. At the time he was killed in 1968, nearly 70% of Americans disapproved of Dr. Martin Luther King. So let that sink in. Cogitate on that tonight as you wonder, should I follow the crowd? Should I support the latest thing? Or should I stand on the right side of history? That's your choice to make, Mavericks.
It is. And I'll be back tomorrow night with that interview with Carl Larson, and we'll keep on working to try and get you closer to the truth. Simple as that. Love you guys.
Good night, Rick. Good night, Mavericks.
Catch y'all on the flip side.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.